Okay, welcome. Today we have a game between Dennis Warhammer, who is otherwise known as Vlad Belmont, and Farao in the bottom right corner. So it looks like as if Dennis Warhammer has. Wait. Oh, that's a little bit strange. Okay, well, I guess maybe they're probably just reassigning. They just rethinking colors. Okay, well, I guess maybe they just want to be a little bit more consistent the with their choice of faction, right? So, okay, so in the top left corner, we've got Vlad Belmont, who will be playing as the Orcs, and we have Farao, who will be playing as. Let's see what he chooses to do. He sometimes has a tendency to pick a a random faction, but it seems like as if now Farao is just going to go for Space Marines. Okay, so we have a relatively classic even matchup. Orcs have the capacity to chuck tons of guns, and Space Marines have tons of ability to resist those guns. So I think that historically speaking, based upon the last tournament results, Orcs and Space Marines have a relatively even win rate against each other, and I think it's simply because that like both Space Marines and Chaos, both Space Marines and Orcs, tend to counterbalance each other. All right, so we're in the current phase of map setup, and it looks like as if Dennis Warhammer has an oil rig over here, while Farao tends to have a has more well-rounded, evenly distributed planets. Okay, so if you take a look at Farao, it seems like as if I think it's Dennis who's going first, or is it Farao? I'm not entirely sure. I'm not exactly sure what the convention is for for picking first player factions, right? So let's take a look and see what's going on. Okay, so it seems like as if Farao is going first, and he's deciding to place one of the one of the diagonally opposite and one of those diagonally opposing roll tiles into the center. Now, normally, whenever Farao deploys, he usually likes placing the objective token on the on the planet without materiel. So in that case, when his opponent captures his objective, he has less there's less of a tendency to snowball. So yeah, it's a looks like a pretty standard deployment from Farao. Okay, so Green on the other hand is deploying another is deploying his set of planets, and well, this is a somewhat interesting planetary deployment option. I mean, I guess if I was the Orcs, I would probably choose the the other side as opposed to this current side, because Orcs usually tend to do much better in pitched battles, and if you take a look at the opposite side, both planets are three skull planets, and especially considering how. But then again, I guess you could probably make the argument that Space Marines don't really roll too many dice either, so there is probably some validity in picking the side with one skull, right? So, but yeah, well, let's take a look and see what Farao does in response. I have a sneaking suspicion that at this point he's probably gonna perform a standard Conga deployment, which is not too surprising, especially given how versatile this form of deployment is. So it looks like as if Farao is maybe planning on going for like a straight up macro game, or if he's trying to create as many void spaces to prevent Orcs from from gaining their objective tokens. Well, I guess that would actually I guess that would definitely make sense. I do think that maybe placing the Orc objective token on a one plot planet is is a relatively solid idea, because it is possible to counteract them. It is possible to counteract them later on, right? So it seems like as if what Farao normally does, especially against orcs, is he tends to separate the orc objective tokens by a fair number of void spaces, so as to force orcs to contest to contest space a little bit more carefully, right? So yeah, I mean, usually against orcs, you usually want to have, since orcs tend to be the most tend to be the most powerful ground-based faction, you usually want to have enough void areas to keep them at an arm's length, so to speak. So, yeah, it looks like as if it's a relatively standard Conga map deployment coming out from Farao, and it seems like as if maybe what Dennis Warhammer might consider doing is perhaps placing one of the tiles in the center. I do think that normally in under normal circumstances, if I'm playing as any other race, I would not consider deploying my 3-planet tile in the center of the map. But it seems like, but the thing is, one of the things I really like about about having a 3-planet tile deployment, especially when you have a ground-based advantage, has a lot to do with the fact that that by placing it in the middle, you can get plenty of control in the center of the map. Okay, well this might seem, okay, well this seems like a somewhat interesting deployment option. I'm not exactly sure if you really want to deploy in top right. Usually if I'm second player, I usually like to deploy in the right in the center of the map, but who knows? Maybe there might be a method to its madness over here. I mean, I guess it does allow orcs to threaten the to apply immediate pressure onto the first objective, right? So I guess that could work out. So it seems like as if what Farao is planning on doing in response is he's gonna deploy placing his 3-planet hex, his 3-planet tile into the center of the map. And this is when like usually if I'm playing as second player and my opponent usually goes for a Conga deployment, I usually like placing my map tile either in one of the central locations of the map, in one of the central locations of the board, because controlling the center of the map is actually reasonably important, especially in a 2-player game, right? So it seems like as if because by controlling the center of the map, you have access to plenty of resources, and then you can also box your opponent in. You can also box your opponent in. Usually, if you control the 2 central map tiles in 2-player, you can usually leverage that to a very powerful positional advantage from which your opponent might not be able to recover as much. So, I guess we're going to have to take a look and see what they plan on doing. I mean, I guess if I'm playing as Space Marines, I would seriously consider placing a Warp Storm in between the the 2 factory systems. Yeah, this is a little bit of a scuffed deployment, because keep in mind that while Farao is going first, if you're going first on your first turn, that's actually not too bad, because usually on the first turn, that's when most people will be doing macro oriented build orders, so you probably won't have to worry nearly as much about about present time attacks, right? So as of now, and once when you're able to get past the first turn, you're basically the second player on your next turn. That's usually a better time in which you can do this. So this is one of the reasons why I'm not exactly a big fan of deploying of of deploying factory to factory as the second player, unless if you're unless if you're maybe Eldar, right? Because the problem with this is once when you hit is as soon as you the first player hits round number two, the they can basically do they can perform an advanced smother in order to create some awkward logistical issues, so to speak. Okay, so it looks like as if Dennis is probably going to open up with a strategize, which makes sense given that he's placing it over there. That I don't think that's necessarily a bad a bad choice, so to speak, right? Like I mean, usually it's a good idea just to upgrade your combat cards early on, and of course over here, Farao has placed a deploy as his last order token. So it seems like as if this is a relatively standard macro-based opener. Don't think that there's going to be too many weird plays or too many unorthodox plays given the way the map is set up. It looks like a pretty straightforward macro opener. So that, and as you can see, Farao has placed a dominate order on top of the deploy. So at this point, so in, just to get his economy running a little bit more smoothly early on. So if you take a look at Dennis, I'm going to suspect that he might place a deploy order somewhere in his factory system. I just don't see why he wouldn't do so. Why he wouldn't do so, right? So, yeah, it seems like a relatively standard macro opener. I probably wouldn't really change too much about what I probably wouldn't really alter. I like. I guess if I was playing as either the orcs or as the Space Marines, play. I would consider just playing things standardly and not really doing anything strange. Just put all my dominates on top of my deploys and then see what goes on, and then just take it from there. Alrighty then. So if All right. So, looks like as if there's a deploy order, as if Vlad Belmont is going to place a deploy order in his top right, as we normally would expect, and it seems like, yeah, I mean, seems like a relatively standard macro opener. I don't really see too many opportunities for creating any large upsets or any large swings. I mean, maybe the orcs might consider attacking the Marine Scout on and creating an income differential, but I guess that's about it. So it seems like as if Farao's going to consider doing to dominate over there, which wouldn't surprise me too much, especially considering how tanky and robust Space Marines are, and considering how he's able to upgrade one of his units into a larger unit. So yeah, well, so far it seems relatively standard. I personally wouldn't really do or alter too many different things. I mean, I guess if I'm playing as orcs, I would probably you know, I guess against Space Marines, I would actually consider getting the Wall upgrade card, which is located over here, because if you take the Wall upgrade card, it allows you to rally it allows you to rally units while generating the much needed morale icons that orcs would need in order to win a pitched battle against the Space Marines. So it looks like as if what Farao is planning on doing is he's planning on doing deploy in in bottom center. So there doesn't really, yeah, it seems like a relatively standard macro opener. I mean, I guess there's definitely some variation in the way in which you could macro. I mean, I guess if I was playing as Space Marines, I could consider maybe doing a double advance into into my first objective. That's one thing that I could consider, right? Because the problem is, like, well, I guess now that I think of it, I guess there are ways to perform a non-standard opener. I guess maybe a double advance into this territory would be fine. But I guess the problem with having daisy chained advances has a lot to do with the fact that his second player, the second player can basically or can block your advance order by placing their own order token on top of the first advance order that's required in order to beeline towards your objective, right? So then when you reveal the the advance order token prematurely, it's just going to waste your action, right? So I think so. Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I guess he could probably start developing some pieces over here, but the problem is by developing pieces over there, he would just make his own system more vulnerable, right? So, and at the moment, it doesn't really seem like as if Space Marines the have to contest the objectives anytime soon. So it looks like as if it's a relatively standard macro opener with Dennis Warhammer placing a dominate order on the bottom left. So okay, so it seems like as if Farrell's just gonna do double dominate into the double deploy. Although, to be kind of honest, I would have preferred if this was a an either an advanced token, an advanced order token, or a even a strategize, right? Okay, so Farao is opening up with a dominate, and he's going to collect maybe 2 cash tokens. I'm assuming he's probably going to get 2 cash tokens because, well, the man loves his money, right? So he's going to get. Okay, so he chooses to replace a scout with a space marine, which is a perfectly rational move, considering how Space Marines usually have some pretty powerful combat triggers. So that goes for his first dominate. Nothing too remarkable. He's just building up base, a solid baseline, and let's take a look and see what Dennis Warhammer does instead. I mean, I guess at this point, it doesn't really matter too much as to how he wants to reveal his order tokens. I mean, usually if I have a strategize without an advanced order token, I would usually prefer to reveal it last because that allows me to counterpick my opponent's builds. So he could probably, I mean, at this point, I do think that maybe. Okay, well, that's an interesting decision. He's choosing to reveal his strategize order token first, but if I was playing as the Orcs, I would have revealed this dominate order instead, because by revealing the dominate order on the bottom left, it would have just made it it I would be signaling less. Like one of the this isn't exactly like a game ending terrible awful mistake to make, but usually if you're not really going to follow up your strategize with an advance or with an immediate attack afterwards, it's probably better just to save it up for last. But then again, I guess maybe Dennis does is considering on capturing the first objective over here. But even then, I still think it would have been a lot better just to get something else, just to deploy here first and maybe get a city, or maybe just even doing a dominate and then doing deploy and then a strategize so you can get some combat upgrades. Okay, so it seems like as if Arouse not screw probably doesn't want to screw around. He's collecting a crap ton of material tokens and a bunch of forge tokens for the upcoming for his upcoming second term, which would definitely play out in his favor, right? Because the thing is, like, if once when Farao gets to go second, he can place the advance token on top of any of the order tokens beneath, so he could just start making a push towards the orc home system. Okay, so then orcs decide to perform a dominant order, and he's probably going to pick a reinforcement and a cash token, especially considering how cash tokens are pretty crucial to gaining additional to boosting your early game economy, right? So it seems like as if so yeah, so far it seems relatively standard. There's nothing too remarkable, but it seems like as if what Dennis is planning on doing is he's using the Orc Spore's ability of the orcs in order to spawn another orc boy. So maybe he might be able to start swinging, start doing start performing like a 3 material swing by conquering this planet. All right, so seems like as if Farao is definitely placing a bastion on the One Skull planet. That makes complete sense to be to be to be perfectly fair. So it seems like as if he is going to be picking. Well, let's take a look and see what he's going to get. I mean, I get the impression that because okay, so he's getting a Bastion, a Space Marine, and possibly another ship. I I I call that for sure. I mean, I don't think that an additional scout would make too much of a huge difference, right? So it seems like as if that's what Farrell plans on purchasing. He's obviously going to place the Space Marine on the factoring system, and he's going to deploy. He's probably going to deploy the 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 battle barge into the unoccupied void, granting him additional land bridges. Okay, well, it seems like as if maybe Pharrell is probably deliberating on adding an additional scout. Okay, well, it seems like as if maybe he's just going to get an additional scout anyways, right? Extra firepower doesn't really hurt, especially early in the game, right? So he's placing a bastion on top on the objective with the land raider, and he's gonna spam a crap ton of units. A crap ton of units. Now, the other issue that I do think that Dennis has in this case is because he's only capable of purchasing 2 orc boys, or heck, even just an orc boy and a bastion. He's forced to either to spread them out. He can either place the problem I have with having a factory that's flanked from both sides has a lot to do with the fact that early on you can get flanked very easily, and there's not really much that you can really do in order to, and you're basically forced to spread out your forces, right? Whereas if you have a nice concentrated front, you don't necessarily have to do that as much. Okay, so the very first battle of the game begins with with 2 orc boys and 1 scout. So let's take a look and see what the combat results are going to be. I mean, Dennis already has an upgraded combat deck, and it turns out that he's probably, yeah, it looks like as if he took let's see, what type of upgrade did he take? Okay, it seems like as if he took Sea of Green, so it does grant him additional, it does give him the ability to play additional reinforcement tokens, right? So yeah, it seems like his. I mean, given the current outcome, I guess maybe playing Sea of Green is probably a good option. I mean, there's not really much that Space Marines can really do with his unupgraded deck, right? So it seems like as if Bao is going to respond with a faith in the Emperor and kind, or maybe he's just going to do recon just to prevent, just so maybe he has the capacity to just kill a couple of units, right? But the problem is okay, so it seems like as if he's just using recon, just to gain 2 defense, and so far it's a do-nothing round with nobody gaining anything in particular. And then afterwards, Farrell's just going to open up with another recon, although orcs can respond in turn with either Shoota Boys or with Slugga Boys. I guess maybe in this case, Slugga Boys is probably the better option because it does allow him to reroll his morale dice, right? So then, using Slugga Boys, he is rerolling his morale and converting them into more useful icons. Farao is using defense, and again, it's yet another do nothing round. So there's not really too much. It seems like as if at this point, yeah, I mean, I guess at this point he might as well just play Fate of the Emperor, right? So then Slugavoids forces Dennis to reroll one defense die. Okay, so it seems like as if he inflicted enough damage to kill off the scout completely. Yeah. I guess, well, now that I think of it, maybe having an advance order may not necessarily be the best idea because it does force him to gain additional units. Because the problem is, like, if you do an advance order and then just move the units from bottom right towards the center, then he won't be able to threaten his home system, right? So it seems like as if maybe the better option in this case is probably just do a deploy, but I think that deploy was a little bit of a scuffed move. If if it was up to me, I probably would have just used a strategize order. I probably would have used a strategize order, and then instead of purchasing the additional scout, I would have upgraded my combat deck, because usually, under most circumstances, I honestly find that the added benefit of an upgraded level 0 combat card is you will generally outweigh just purchasing one measly unit that just chucks you an additional die, right? Okay, so it seems like as if at this point they're just going to resolve order tokens, and oh wow, it looks like as if Farao has gotten Rites of Battle, which allows him to get an order upgrade, reducing its cost by one friendly for each friendly roll containing a bastion. So he does at least pick up a free Rain of Fire, which is it's a well, I mean, hey, it's something. It's still at least better than nothing, right? And then over here, it seems like as if it gets them. Okay, that's actually pretty devastating. If the Space Marine unit becomes routed once, then he can just chuck that away and then just kill the unit completely. Yeah, it seems like as if okay, so it seems like as if Dennis has gotten a really good event pick, and now it is round 2 with Dennis Warhammer going first. Now, there are several ways that he can approach this. I do think that if Dennis Warhammer controls this using an advance order, he can start obtaining his first objective, right? So then previously on the last turn, Dennis Warhammer got 8 material, and Farao got 4 material. Okay, so it seems like I mean, right now, orcs have the material advantage, but it is still possible. But it seems like as if Space Marines still have a pretty substantial positional advantage over here in the over here in the top over here, right? Because the thing is, usually if you get flanked by your factories, you're forced into making a lot of forcing moves. You generally have to make a lot of forcing moves in order to defend, right? So let's take a look and see what the orcs plan on doing. It seems like as if Farao is putting a strategize order token on the very bottom. That's I'm not exactly sure if that's the best idea. Whereas Dennis over here has the ability is placing a strategize order token on the system containing the oil rig. So let's take a look and see what's going on, what Farao might plan on doing. I mean, I have a sneaking suspicion that he will, in fact, start making progress and start pushing towards the orcs, on during this turn. I mean, I do think that this is the better play, and who knows? There's also a possibility that maybe Space Marines could even do a double advance this turn, right? And there are multiple viable options when it comes to making a double advance. He can either advance using this army first, and then just conquering this planet, and then maybe subsequently conquering the factory as a result, or maybe he could also do another advance by or he could probably do a double advance by maybe attacking with the force from bottom right, and then following up from the force from top center. So we're going to have to take a look and see what he does. Okay, so it seems like as if... Sorry, I kind of missed that order token. I hope they don't really mind what that is. Okay, so it seems like as if the... Well, okay, well, it's probably some macro-oriented build order, or it could very well be an advanced order token from either player. I just need to double check and see what that is. Okay, so he's going to do a dominate order, but I usually don't like placing dominate on the very bottom, especially when my opponent has plenty of incentive to threaten me, because the problem is whenever you place a dominate order, your opponent can very likely steal a planet that contains assets, so it just reduces the overall efficiency of that order, right? So yeah, it seems like as if Pharao is going for an advance. There is still a possibility that he could go for a double advance, right? I mean, one of the other ways I can also see Pharao maybe doing a double advance order viably is once when he takes over this planet, he can also scoot a ship over into the into the orc homeworld, right? And then from the orc homeworld, and then once when he moves a ship into one of the void spaces in the orc homeworld, which is something that I think he would definitely do, Pharrell can just dogpile his objective by by sending in by massing units from his from the previously conquered planet on the first advance order, while bringing in some additional units on from top center. Okay, so it seems like as if orcs are planning on maybe establishing a new base of operations in bottom center, and it seems like as if orcs want to maybe just do an advance, planning on blocking that with an advance, but I don't really think that's a good strategy or that's a viable strategy because logistically speaking, I I don't think that's a good logistical strategy because the problem is, um, given the way the advanced tokens are going to work, I don't think he's probably going to do too much. Okay, so it seems like as if Pharao is going to consider doing a double advance, and oh geez, well this doesn't really bode too well for for Dennis Warhammer. He should have at least placed a deploy somewhere in the stack, somewhere in the top, in the stack in the top right? But I mean, I guess, well, okay. I mean, I guess now that I think of it, I guess it is possible for orcs to maybe do an advance order here, just to just to quash the Space Marines, and then maybe and then and then doing something else afterwards, right? Okay, so it seems like as if Dennis Warhammer is just going to use a strategize. And I'm gonna be honest, I think that's a mistake. That is definitely a mistake because the problem is, even if you decide to strategize, I think Space Marines still have a very good chance of winning against the two Orc boys with a Land Raider, a Space Marine, and a Scout, even with a relatively basic combat deck, right? So, but then again, Dennis Warhammer does have two reinforcement tokens. Now, the other thing that he could also consider doing is he could probably move a ship over here and then just take over the Bastion with the Orc boy. So, in that case, the Orcs can only muster one reinforcement token, and I think that's probably the better option. I don't think he wants to turn. I really do think that maybe for Rao at this point, he really just needs to take the opportunity to just force the situation now before it becomes much worse, right? I mean, at the very least, the orcs might not really have any ability to go over here. So it seems like as if maybe that is probably the better option. Just use a strategize and then just perform an order upgrade. Okay, so he's probably going to use hold the line, a very which is a very standard opener, and he's probably going to discard Fury of the Ultramar as a result of that. I mean, usually hold the line, usually chucking away Fear of the Ultramar and getting hold of the line is the better option. Okay, but it seems like as if he's keeping Fear of the Ultramar. That's a pretty interesting choice, and he's getting rid of Ambush instead. But I think that's not a bad play at all. Okay, so the Orcs are going to do a deploy order, which I consider to be a bit of a misplay because, again, he's probably not going to be able to force the situation. I mean, if I was playing the Orcs, I would probably just force the situation now and then just conquer the objective with the 2 material planet, but maybe he just wants to leave it, wants to be a little bit more defensive. But then now, Farao has the opportunity to do a double attack, and the problem is if the Orcs follow up with an advance order token onto this stack, he's probably gonna fight with a severely weakened force. I can see 2 viable options at this point. He could either conquer the planet south of the factory or the planet to the west of the factory, and either way, I think the Orcs are probably just gonna get screwed, right? So it seems like as if, I mean, well, Farao, you got to reveal that order token. That's the only thing you've got. So he is going to use an advance order, and I do think he's. Yeah, seriously, you should bring in a ship. Bring in a ship, man. Bring in a ship. I know you can do this. I know you can do this. Just bring in a ship and just block the void space, right? You can do this. You can absolutely do this. And then maybe kill. Just do that. Just do it. Okay, so it seems like as if. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like a relatively standard game. There doesn't really seem to be too many weird shenanigans going on right now, so it seems like as if Farao does in fact want to attack using his Land Raider, his Space Marine, and his Scout against the 2 Orc boys. And then I'm going to assume that Dennis Warhammer might bring in a couple of reinforcement tokens. To aid with the battle. Alrighty then. So let's take a look and see what their initial rolls are going to be. Okay, so it's basically like a set of do nothing rolls. Okay, so he's got 2 offense. So Space Marines have 2 offense, 3 defense, and Orc Boys have 2 offense and 2 defense. So given this set of hands, I would consider maybe playing Faith in the Emperor, or yeah, maybe well, I could probably just leave it last. I guess maybe Hold the Line is probably not a bad idea. Recon is usually a relatively safe pick as well. So, by spending 1 morale to retreat one of his units, I don't think that's probably the best option for him right now, but yeah, this is one of the reasons why I'm always a little bit skeptical of skewing towards defense all the time. I do think that maybe the better upgrade probably would have been either Drop Pod Assault or maybe Glory in Death, right? Especially Glory in Death. I think Glory in Death is a little bit underrated because it does force your opponent to lose defense dice, and forcing Orcs to lose dice does prevent them from doing all sorts of like rerolling shenanigans, right? So I'm not exactly sure if this is something that could pan out. I mean, I guess Space Marines do have a crap ton of morale, and he could probably win using morale, but I don't really think that it's probably the best thing to do. So, okay, so I guess if I was playing as Space Marines, it is possible to open up with a Blessed Power Armor and then just start tanking damage. And then just tank damage and then just win via morale. So it seems like as if both players are deliberating and seeing what they're planning on doing. Both players have a crap ton of shields, and surprisingly, Orcs did not draw Sea of Green, which could have actually helped him a lot. I do think that maybe as Space Marines, the most viable win condition for this battle is just winning via morale. So I think that maybe using Blessed Power Armor into Hold the Line is probably the best sequence of plays here. Okay, so he's going to use Recon, and then Mega Knobs. Okay, so then he has Mega Knobs. Wait, that's pretty strange. Where did it go? Oh, okay, well, that's... Okay, alright. So then your opponent must reroll all defense, but then he has Recon. Okay, so then right now, Orcs are up by 3 bolt guns, and then... Wait, hold on a second. Maybe they're just probably just doing it in a relatively loose order. They're not really following things in a totally... Wait, hold on a second. Is that a knob? Yeah, it looks like as if that's a knob. Okay. Alright, well, that's pretty interesting. So, he's got 5 bolt guns against 3 defense. That's not gonna... Okay, but it seems like as if it's a do-nothing round. Neither player has inflicted any harm upon each other. So, for the next round, I probably would have opened up with Blessed Power Armor, especially considering how how Blessed Power Armor allows you to change the dice after you reroll them. I mean, keep in mind that as Defender, you always resolve your effects second, right? So, you could probably choose Hold the Line, but I do think that maybe Blessed Power Armor probably would have been the better play. Okay, so with Blessed Power Armor, okay, so it... Oh, well, that's interesting. Are the reinforcements tokens in the battle or not? I'm going to assume that they're probably not in the battle. So he's got Blessed Powered Armor, and then he has to reroll all the defense die. Oh, wait, sorry, my bad. I totally I totally misrepresented the situation. So it's actually the Space Marines that are attacking first. So that's... Yeah, that changes the calculus quite a bit. So, Orcs have a crap ton of defense. Space Marines have enough defense to cancel it out. So it is yet another do-nothing round. All right. So Space Marines are probably just gonna just tank up, or just gonna tank up and are probably just gonna play a lot of defensive cards and then just win via morale. I mean, Orcs don't really have any morale-based tools, so he's going to gain 2 additional defense tokens, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 defense against 4 possible guns, but I do think that maybe getting a defense die is probably better, especially considering how Orcs usually tend to have severe morale issues, right? Like, if you take a look at their stats, the knobs have 2 morale, but it's not going to really matter too much. Okay, so it seems like as if the Orcs are routed and they're forced to retreat. Yeah, it seems like as if they're basically routed and they're forced to retreat. So, Farao takes the first battle. Now, the problem is, Orcs have to reveal the advance order token over here, and this is one of the reasons why I honestly think that the Orcs should have forced the situation now, as opposed to later. Right? Because now his units are routed, and by having to reveal this advance order token, one Orc boy, I think, is just not going to cut it against a Space Marine, especially with Hold the Line as a defensive option, right? So there are several things that I think Farao could do when it comes to his second order. I mean, if it was up to me, I would consider maybe just conquering the factory and then just getting rid of the factory entirely, so it shuts down his production. And once when you have that production shut down, that second objective is more or less guaranteed at that point, while quashing the Orc's ability to do anything else in return. Okay, yeah, so it seems like as if the advanced order token was not a very good move from the Orc player's side. I do think that, I mean, he could try to make a desperado move by sending in an Orc boy and a reinforcement token. I guess that could work as a... I guess that could work. Maybe not all hope is lost, right? But the problem is, by doing this, he is abandoning the Bastion. And by abandoning the Bastion, he does leave it for Farao to capture. Alrighty then. So, let's see what it's going to be. Alright, so if we take a look at the Orc's hands, he hasn't drawn Seed of Green again. Well, that's actually like 2 turns in a row. That's a little bit stuffed, you know? So, yeah, I think that in this case, maybe the best thing he could. I think the best thing that Farouz should do is just keep spamming hold the line. I do think that just by spamming two hold the lines, there's just not really much that Orc can really do to overcome it. I think that is honestly, if I was playing as Orcs, I would actually seriously consider getting Law as a first combat upgrade, and I probably wouldn't really replace Mech Boys because Mech Boys has because against Space Marines they have a lot of defensive and morale icons, right? So then by using Mech Boys you could probably pull off additional morale icons. Whereas the problem with Mega Knobs, or the problem I have with the with either Mega Knobs or Biker Knobs, the other card that rerolls all offense dice, is they're actually a liability against Space Marines because you could just be giving them more morale in that sense, right? So against Space Marines, I do think that the better play is to get something like Law and keep Mech Boys, and then maybe swap out a couple of and then maybe swap out a defense. I think that's probably the better deck building option, but it's yeah, so of course he has hold the line. I don't really think that there's really much that that Dennis and the Menace can really the Green Menace can really do to counterplay the Space Marines, especially given that the Space Marines have a crap ton of defense, right? So it seems like okay, so then he's re-rolling the defense and he's getting additional offense. He has 4 guns against Space Marines Recon. So it looks like as if there are. So it looks like as if, yeah, it looks like as if Faral's just going to use a standard turtling turtling move, and I think that in the next round he's probably just going to play hold the line, which is what I would personally do. I mean, among the other 3 options, this has to be the most obvious one. Yeah, Space Marines are not an easy foe to beat. If you really want to beat them, you should seriously consider going for morale more than for anything else. Okay, so Space Marines roll a gun, and then he's got hold the line yet again. So then he's gonna get like a like a Great Wall of Shields. So then that's 6 defense against 5 bolt guns. There's just no way that he's gonna win. There's just no way that they're gonna win. So then Orcs have 2 morale. Space Marines have 6 morale. So yeah, they're just gonna be beaten back. He's just going to be beaten back, and he's going to be forced to retreat into Bastion. Alrighty then. So I guess at this point, I do think that maybe the best possible move is just to conquer the Bastion. He's only got 2 dice, so there's not really too much that he could do. I mean, I guess one of the things that I would consider doing is I would consider maybe moving in just a Space Marine and a Land Raider just to conquer the Bastion. And sure, it will leave Orcs with a concentration of forces in top right, but I don't think it's going to be too relevant at this point. I mean, he could also consider taking over the factory. That is one thing he could do, but it seems a little bit redundant. Or he could maybe, yeah, okay. It seems like as if maybe, yeah, I think that maybe an advance would actually make a lot of sense, right? Because the thing is, by using an advance order token, he can probably just maybe capture the objective, or maybe Farao just wants to play it a little bit slower and perhaps block off Dennis from producing any additional ships, right? Because the thing is, from our viewpoint, we know exactly what Dennis has, right? But from his viewpoint, it could either be a dominate or it could be a deploy. So who knows what he plans on doing? I mean, there is a possibility that. Okay, so it seems like as if Arouse probably just wants to play it a little bit safer. He doesn't want to take too many chances, and then as a result, he's just going to capture the factory. Yeah. I'm not Well, that's an interesting move. I'm not exactly sure if that probably is the better play. I mean, I guess maybe he probably just wants to do just go nice nice and slow, right? I mean, if you go nice and slow, there's no way there you're it's you're going to be a lot more consistent as a result of that, right? So he does in fact get a cash token, but I don't think Orc Spores is a viable use right now, unless if he wants to get a knob. Oh no, that's not possible. He can't get a knob. There are no. He doesn't have any cities or forge tokens to speak of right now. Alrighty then. So the final order of the day is just going to be a dominate. He's probably going to get two reinforcement tokens, and then possibly get either a Space Marine or perhaps a Land Raider. Yeah, I think the Space Marine is probably the better option. It's just they just have more combat triggers, right? So it looks like as if he's going to get a Space Marine from that alone, and then based upon the material count, we've got 6 mats for the Marines, and we've got we've got 7 mats for the Orcs. Although, I mean, normally I would put a little bit more weight on the person with more material, but I think in this case, Farrell's positioning is actually better than that of the Orcs. So I do think that so I do think that even though Dennis might be ahead in terms of material or in terms of production, I do think that Farrell actually has the upper hand, especially given his positional advantage, right? Like, I get the impression that Farrell tends to be a relatively all-rounder expert player, so he goes for material when he needs to go for material. He goes for for positional play when positional play is the better is the better option. So yeah, it seems like as if Dennis's logistics are a little screwy at this point. He could probably try to make a push leftward, but the problem is with by doing that, he does leave himself open for the first objective capture by the Space Marines. All right, so let's take a look and see what he's got. So he's got let's get fighting. So he's able to place an additional Orc Blade, but oh no, all of his planets are capped. Okay, well that's actually pretty unfortunate. He's not able to do that, but I don't think he even strategized that turn. That was actually a really unlucky pick. Okay, so it looks like as if he's got Emperor's Champion, and Emperor's Champion just allows him to be have more Humpty Dumpties. Okay, and it looks like as if the Space Marines are still relatively safe from the Orcs right now, and then the Orcs, well, they're basically screwed at this in this place, right? Like as soon as I think that as soon as Farrell just mops up the Orcs in in the home sector, there probably isn't really too much that the Orcs can really do in order to capture the other objectives. I mean, Orcs have a feasible chance of getting this objective, no doubt, but when both players achieve parity in terms of objective capture, I think the Space Marines can just win by capturing and controlling the map, and then once you start gradually gradually accumulating an economic advantage. You can just win the game by map control at this point. So, I mean, again, I think it's still a little bit early to call it, right? I mean, I guess I guess there is still a possibility that maybe Farrell might make a scuffed play and thereby throw the game as a result of that. But Farrell isn't really known for doing that. He's just a good, consistent, solid player who knows what he's doing, right? And if he sees at econ crushing is the viable win con, he's going to do econ crushing. He's going to use econ crushing as a viable. He's just going to go for it, right? So yeah, all right. So on round 3, we're gonna take a look and see what for round plans I'm doing. I mean, there are several viable plays I can see. He could do a double advance. He could probably do an advance over here and then advance over here, like a and just maybe split his advance order tokens. And I actually think that maybe doing a split advance into bottom into bottom center and top and into top right is probably the best play, because the thing is you're able to kill off orcs, right? And keep in mind that one of the other variables that I think most players don't really that some players don't really think about nearly as much is map control and, dare I say, mana advantage on the map, right? Like if you think of like I like to think of my units as 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 resources on the map. If you have fewer resources on the map, like one of the ways that you can determine your 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 medium to long term prospects respectively is by looking at the total material that you have on the map plus the total material in your bank. Your bank is basically potential, it's basically economic potential that that can be leveraged into units. But then having actual units on the map allows you to obviously do things and accomplish stuff, right? So the thing is, like in this case, I do think that if Faral conquers this planet and then basically wipes off a total of 7 material on the map, while maybe also wiping off for additional material. Like keep in mind that losing material on the map is also pretty bad as well. If you lose too much material on the map, your opponent can then just leverage that even further. Can just like drive that in even further, and then just win the game from that point on. I mean, to Dennis's credit, he does. It seems like as if he understands the importance of maintaining a strong economic advantage, right? But I think the biggest issue I have with Dennis's um, economics is his factory. His factory is only on a two-pot planet, so there isn't really too much that he can possibly build. He could build some additional orc ships, and he could probably threaten that way, but keep in mind that if you're not able to spend your mana, so to speak, and establish a board and establish more board presence, we're probably not gonna. It doesn't really seem to matter nearly as much, right? Like, I mean, and Farrell isn't really trailing too far behind, but he's in a much stronger position. So it seems like as if Farrell is going to go for a strategize first, but so will Dennis. Now he could go for, okay, so he's going to go for a deploy order, which is interesting to say the very least. I mean, it's I don't think it's necessarily a bad move. He could get his first city, and by getting his first city, it does open up the door to gaining additional to gaining additional. It does at least unlock his tier one order upgrades, and some Space Marine tier one order upgrades are reasonably solid, especially Crusade. I think Crusade is a little bit of an underrated card. For reference, we have Crusade. Oh, okay, it's right over here. It does allow you to gain reinforcement tokens. Now, keep in mind that this is actually strictly better than putting the reinforcement token in the battle most of the time, because you can bank up the reinforcement tokens and then just use them for subsequent battles, right? Okay, so it seems like as if Farao is planning on doing a deploy and strategize. He could, I mean, I actually kind of feel like as if at this point he could probably go for a double advance. I mean, I guess if I wanted to do a deploy, I probably should have placed it over here. Okay, so it looks like as if Dennis wants to do another deploy over there, but, huh, hmm, not sure if that's the best order. Okay, so it seems like as if Farao does in fact want to go for an advance order over there, and perhaps defend the orc objective, and then maybe just get rid of some material, right? So that is, I can conceivably see that happen, right? But then orcs are probably going to do an advance in response, and then Dennis and then Dennis is gonna do, and then it seems like as if Dennis is gonna do that instead. Okay, so it seems like as if there's going to be a double advance. Now the biggest issue, now again, I think the biggest issue with having a daisy chain advance has a lot to do with the fact that your opponent can just simply reveal the order tokens in the order that they so choose. But he's planning on using deploy first, so he's gonna get some additional ships. He'll probably get a city. Okay, well that's an interesting choice. But I think the city's. I mean, it seems a bit of a weird decision, but I don't think it's necessarily all that bad. The city does enable him to get additional, and does enable him to at least start ramping up the tech tree, so to speak, right? And then he's going to use a strategize order token, and by using strategize, he's going to get biker knobs. Okay, honestly, at this point, I would have just gotten Wa. I think Wa is probably the much better option because again, the biker knobs and the mega knobs are actually liabilities against Space Marines. I would have just gotten Wa, and I would have kept Mech Boys while having Sea of Green. I think that's actually the more viable build order if you want to fight against Space Marines, right? So he's getting the strategize order token, and then let's take a look and see what he's going to get. So he's going to pick Vet Scouts. Okay, Vet Scouts is a pretty interesting card. I guess maybe it's actually not too bad. I mean, I guess you can get Vet Scouts and then maybe just go into Vet Scouts by either getting Faith of the Emperor and hold the line. Right now, I'm a little bit concerned if he gets rid of Fury of the Ultramar. Okay, well I guess maybe Fury of the Ultramar is probably the worst option of the bunch, right? So he is in fact getting Veteran Scouts as a counterpick option. Okay, so the Orcs are going to advance into this territory over here. Yeah, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't exactly a huge fan of doing that. I think that as first player, I would have placed an advanced token in the center of the map and then just see what would have been done. I do think that 4 versus 1 is just really... it's a pretty tough matchup. It is still possible to win using... perhaps using a reinforcement token, but I sure as heck wouldn't really count on it. This is... Yeah, this doesn't really seem like as if it's the best possible option. I mean, he could probably just get hold the line. No, hold the line doesn't really work because it's a scout and not a space marine. I would have placed the, to be perfectly honest, if I had anticipated an attack, I would have just placed the advanced order token over here. And I probably would have just done a double advance just to start clearing off some dudes on the map, right? Because as of right now, it seems like as if Sea of Green, it's just going to nullify the scout. So by nullifying the scout, he won't even be able to use recon, right? So yeah, it looks like as if it's a pretty bad. Yeah, it doesn't really look like as if it's going to go in Pharaoh's favor. I mean, Orcs still have at least 3 morale at this point. Yeah, that was a bit of a throw. I would have just forced the situation and just maybe killed off the Orcs, and then once when I'm done killing off the Orcs, I can then just start contesting this area over here. I really do think that if he wanted to do an advance order, I would have just placed the advance order on the very bottom instead. Okay, so he's got biker knobs. I think that's just going to be the end of poor little Billy Boy the Scout over here. And then reconnaissance over here. He's got 2 defense. It's 5 defense against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so he still survives. He still makes it, but again, it doesn't really seem like as if it's the best possible option. You can probably just keep spamming defense all he wants, but I think at some point or another, the bolt guns are probably just going to break through. So he's going to get shoot-a-blaze, and he has to reroll all the defense. Pharao has to reroll all his defense. Gets hold of line, and then there's 2, 4, 5, 8 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So the scout is actually dead. He's just dead. So yeah, the scout is dead. Scout is dead, man. He's good as gone. Yeah, I guess if I was playing against if I was Space Marines, I would have just placed the advance order at the very bottom. I usually find that if you're going as first or if you're going before another player, you really shouldn't daisy chain your advances because it's just too easily blocked and it just doesn't really. And trust me, I've thrown quite a few games based upon that alone. And then now it seems like as if, as if Dennis Warhammer, in fact, has the upper hand. Yeah, this was a little bit scuffed. Honestly, I think that the deploy order should have been over here. But then again, I guess Varao does have the opportunity to do another counterattack, to maybe do another counterattack by killing off the orc over here. But again, still, I'm mildly critical of this decision. I do think that it would have been a lot better had the advanced order token been at the very bottom. I mean, you have to keep in mind that as first player, you have that type of advantage, so you might as well use it, right? So it's going to get some additional some kill cruisers, as they call them. No, onslaught attack ships spending 4 material, and then he's going to use an advance order token to send in a kill cruiser, and it's probably going to, well, he could probably beeline it, and he could actually just win by using 2, and just, and get his 2 orc boys, right? But it seems like as if yeah, but I mean, at the same time, Pharrell can probably just counterpick, right? So yeah, it seems like as if because the problem is if he basically claims uses both orc boys and then sack them over here, he might actually just end up not capturing any of the objectives at all. But then at the same time, if he captures, but then at the same time, if he sends in only one orc boy, there's a strong chance that he might not necessarily win it. I mean, if you send it an orc boy with a reinforcement token, it is technically possible to win, but I mean, this is Space Marine, right? So there's a strong likelihood that you're probably not gonna win against them anytime soon. So yeah, it's especially considering how bastions do in fact hold the line. So, yeah, it seems like a bit of a wasted advanced order token. And then now with Space Marines. So it seems like as if maybe that's about it. Well, I mean, he has to reveal the advanced order token. There's really no other choice that. There's no other real play at this point. There's only the advanced token at bottom right. So yeah, okay. Well, okay. Well, so it seems like as if he's probably just going to get a city. Okay, well, I think that actually makes sense. Yeah, you could also just get a city. And then once when you have a city, you're able to claim the objective, and then once when you do an advance order token, once when you reveal in advance, you can probably just start beelining and just killing and just getting that one objective. But the problem is, if you still claim that one objective, the Space Marines can probably just fend you off yet again. So it's a little, yeah, I'm a little bit skeptical. I really do think that Farao should have just mopped up a little bit more conclusively by first getting rid of all the orcs in in this area, and then maybe subsequently killing more orcs on that area. Oh, well, why aren't you getting a city? I mean, cities are really good over the long term, but okay, I guess maybe double factory could also work as well, but I think the biggest issue is if you use up your building slots a little bit too easy. Well, I mean, he does have 2 additional building slots that I don't think Space Marines are going to get to anytime soon, right? So by getting okay, so it seems like as if predictably gonna do that. Now I think that the second option I probably would have done is I really would have considered maybe getting drop pods instead, but I don't think drop pods work with bastions alone, do they? No, they don't. So, Or even Fear, or even Glory in Death. Glory in Death is actually not too bad on the defense. It's not too bad on the defense. You sometimes just need that nice left hook in order to quash them, but I don't think it's too viable against orcs. Okay, so I'm gonna do offense, offense, defense, defense. These are fun. Here goes. Okay, so for Rouse, I'm going to be inflicting any damage anytime soon. I mean, keep in mind that obviously Hold the Line still procs when defending, so he could just do that, or he could also probably just get Blessed Power Armor. That's not a bad play. I mean, you could probably, because keep in mind that you can always shift your dice after the orcs go, right? So I think that maybe Blessed Power Armor into Hold the Line is probably a good idea. Or you could also just do Hold the Line first. That could also work. Yeah, that could also work. Just become an incredibly tanky Bastion. So, as of now, I do think that the Orcs might be able to win if they play Sea of Green, which the Orcs still haven't drawn. So, there's a total of 3 morale against 2 morale. But if he has Hold the Line, then he can just convert. He can basically just use Hold the Line to to gain additional morale, right? I mean, I probably would have opened up with Blessed Power Armor because being able to convert your dice after going through the reroll is probably it just works a little bit better against the orcs, right? So if you take a look at this, there's going to be Biker Knobs, and then using Biker Knobs, he is going to oh, sorry, my bad. He's just going to reroll all offense, and then he's going to get Hold the Line, and then by using Hold the Line, he's got 2 defense, and he can gain defense die. When he gains a defense die, he's going to have a total of 4 defense against 4 offense, which is enough to shrug off the hits. So, really don't. Yeah, it seems like as if maybe the best thing to do is just to keep tanking at this point. Just keep tanking your your units, and then just see where you can go from that point on. Okay, so he's planning on getting morale instead. Well, that's pretty interesting. Maybe he plans on setting up a Vet Scouts on turn 2. I mean, I guess yeah, I guess Vet Scouts is not too bad if you get additional stuff, but it's just if you can find a way to just spike it at the right time. But it seems, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptical of that card. That card's still a little. So he's going to get more bolt guns. So then there's a total of 6 bolt guns, and then Vet Scouts gives him 2 shields. Then now he's got 2 shields, he's got 4 shields against 6, so the Bastion does not die. So the Bastion is also just doesn't die. Now, I do think that the next best option is to probably just get Blessed Power Armor. I think Blessed Power Armor is just better at this point. So if you take a look at this, okay, so he's going to get Shootaboys. He's going to buy and reroll all of his defense. Let's see what he gets. So he gets 1 additional bolt gun. So that's 2, 4, 6, 9. 2, 4, 6, 9. But then he gets. But then Space Marines have Blessed Power Armor, so he has a total of 5 defense. And if he converts 2 of them into 2 defense, then his Bastions ironically still survives. And then the Space Marines and the Orcs actually just can't hit. So then by changing it from morale. Yeah, by pivoting 2 dice into defense, he gets that one over there, and then he gets for a total of 7 defense against 9 guns, and the Space Marines still stand strong. Yeah, honestly, if this had been a Waaagh or anything of that sort, I do think that Dennis would have actually stood a better chance, but alas, it was not a Waaagh. So he's gonna have to do that again. So he's basically beaten back. Alright, so Farao is going to perform an advance order, methinks. Yeah, he's going to do the advance order. I'm pretty sure that he will. He's probably just going to send it. I can see a couple of plays he could do. Could send in 2 best ships and kill off the 1 lone kill cruiser. That is doable. At the very least, it would force him to route his units, right? And would maintain some degree of hegemony. Now, I do think that if you're playing against Perks, you probably might want to maybe just chuck in the extra reinforcement tokens if he gets Sea of Green. But given his luck, I don't think he's going to get Sea of Green anytime soon, right? So, okay, well, it seems like as if Farao's just doing it for safety purposes, right? So he's got a total of 4 morale in the system, and with Hold the Line, Vet Scouts, and Recon, he's pretty much set to possibly demolish the piddly little cruiser, right? So he's going to use Hold the Line. And again, I mean, it's Space Marines, right? What are you going to do against them? I do think that spamming defense against that getting lots of defense is basically how you more or less play as Space Marines, right? So he's probably just going to get Hold the Line, and then he's going to get 2 deep fight. He's going to get 2 defense. Probably just going to get an additional morale die. Just some additional defense. He's got a total of 5 guns. Okay, and then with Sea of Green, he does in fact get 1 additional reinforcement token, but he doesn't have more units. So it seems like as if at this point they've achieved parity when it comes to quantity of units, although Space Marines still have a 1 morale lead. Now, on the other hand, okay, so, I mean, honestly, if it was me, I would probably just keep playing something like Hold the Line. I mean, Hold the Line is just strictly better than Faith in the Emperor, because you're getting additional, you're just getting way more perks and benefits, right? So, by doing that, he's going to get Hold the Line yet again. Pretty humdrum. He's going to get 2 defense. Now, your opponent, orcs do respond with a Mega Knock, so he's going to reroll all defense. And he has 1, 2, 3 guns against 5 shields, so it does nothing, and it's 1 defense as a result of that. So it's yet again a do nothing round. So yet again, it's a do nothing round. So the second option he could probably do is he could just use Vet Scouts. I don't know. Vet Scouts is a little bit. It's a bit like a wet fish. It hits a bit like a wet fish dunked in alcohol. So I just don't really think it's going to do too much. But hey, it gives you the additional morale, and it gives you the, and it can give, and it does give the additional 2 defense. Wow. Dice, right? So he does in fact use Vet Scouts. He's just going to get more defense because you can just win by morale anyhow, and then afterwards he rerolls biker knobs, and then he rerolls 2 bolt guns. He still gets 2 bolt guns in exchange. So yeah, it was a little pedestrian, a little humdrum. So there wasn't really too much. Okay, so he does in fact end up routing 1 unit, but Farao still wins based on morale alone, right? So yeah, it was a relatively standard straight up battle, not really too much. So now both players get their strategized order tokens. get their event cards. Let's take a look and see what. That's okay. So Dennis has captured the first objective, and seems like as if, well, conceivably, I mean, I think if I had to conceive of if I had to think of an interesting move for Farao, I think one of the things he could consider doing is maybe building a city, and then is do a deploy into strategize, and then once you do a deploy into strategize, you can then do a double advance, because by doing that, that allows you to improve the power level of your overall combat deck by a gigaton, while being able to spike your and possibly spike your opponent, right? So if you take a look at the Warp Storm movements, it looks like as if both of them have the same Warp Storm movements, but it does have. But I mean, Rites of Battle is probably the better option at this point because you can purchase additional combat upgrades. What combat upgrade will it be? I'm thinking about maybe getting Direct the Faithful. Yeah, I can see how that could work. I mean, you could probably just use Direct the Faithful, turn the factory into a city, and then start getting your level 2 combat upgrades, right? You could probably do a strategize into an advance using that maneuver, but seems a little bit risky. You could also try to do so. Yeah, seems like as if both players are just blocking off the respective areas. So yeah, it seems like as if at this point there's okay. So Dennis has 13 material, and then Farao has 6. So Dennis does in fact have a lot of material backed up, although it is still possible for Farao to leverage his superior position by killing off by maybe conquering the 2 orc boys over here, and then as a result, he might not really be able to do very much with his material. I mean, he's only got. I mean, keep in mind that Dennis Warhammer, he's only at command level 0, so he's not going to be able to buy any advanced units at this point, right? So, but with that being said, we move on to round number 4, and kicking off in round number 4, Dennis begins with a deploy. It's very likely going to be a city. It better not be. It better be a city of some kind or another. Because if it's not a city, I'd actually be a little bit disappointed. I'd actually be a little bit disappointed, right? But again, I think that may be the best. Yeah, it's probably going to be a city. Probably, most likely, certainly, definitely going to be a city already. So let's take a look and see what Farao is going to do in response. So Farao looks like as if he's going to do a dominate, and he's probably just going to slowly tech up and start getting some land raiders. And in that respect, get some more, just refreshes with enforcement tokens, and then see where he goes as a result of that. Yeah, it doesn't really seem like as if there's, I mean, it seems like as if maybe Farao just probably wanted to be a relatively safe, consistent game. I don't think he's really going to be making too many weird, awkward gambits that would force him into a weird situation anytime soon. So maybe maybe that's just how it's going to be. He's probably just going to go for a relatively standard macro-based game, and probably just going to take it from that point on. So, with that out of the way, we can probably think about what Dennis plans on doing. There are several things I could see him do a little bit more. He could probably just keep doing a bit more strategize. Okay. Oh, wait, he wants to do an advance. Now that is a very peculiar advance. I'm not exactly sure. That seems a little bit logistically unsound to some extent, but you also have to keep in mind that Farao doesn't really have any units adjacent to the bottom left corner, so there really isn't too much that Farao can really do in terms of blocking the daisy chain advance order, right? So finally Farao's just gonna take things a little bit more seriously and just take things seriously and maybe just capture the Bastion objective. Alrighty then. So it seems like as if Dennis is going to do a double deploy over here, which is actually not a bad move. I mean, it does at least allow Dennis to reestablish a base of operations in the bottom left corner, although that does drive him a little bit further back. I think that if I was Pharrell, I would consider, I really would have considered just mopping up the orcs in top right and bottom center a turn ago, just so he doesn't have nearly as much material on the map, right? Like, I mean, having material on the map is pretty important because the problem is if you're behind in terms of positioning or if you're behind in terms of having material on the map, then I have a higher degree of certainty that if you want to get back in the game, you're probably going to place a deploy order at some point or another, right? And I can probably infer that. Whereas if I have if I have an advantage in terms of material in terms of board control, then I'm more free to do what I want to do with my own order tokens. And usually in a game that has non-trivial signaling elements, you don't want to be the guy who signals too hard, right? I mean, if you've ever played any any type of trading card game or anything of that sort, if you're just behind on board, you're going to have you usually the type of options that you have in order to get back in the game are relatively limited, so your opponent can infer based upon that knowledge and just use that as leverage, and then just leverage you into an even more awkward situation. Okay, so it seems like as if Rao's just going to do a double advance. He's probably just going to do like a double sweep, like a like a sweep back and forth. But if I had to be honest, I would have probably considered maybe saving the second advance order token for this position over here, because the more awkward you make it for the orcs, the better you become, right? Like usually, like one of the things that I also like to do whenever I consider conquest is I usually like to think about things in terms of is I also like to think in terms of quashing or killing a person's Aji, like their future potential value, by cutting off their supply chains and making their order stacks as hellishly brutal as possible, right? Okay, so it seems like as if Dennis is going to reveal a deploy order, and then he's probably going to build. Yeah, he's going to build a factory, although it's not really much of a factory. Although it's not really much of a factory. But I can see what he's planning on doing. He's probably planning on maybe just killing Pharao from from a hook, right? So he's going to use Direct the Faithful, transform the factory into a city, and then I think he's going to get a level 2 combat upgrade. I mean, Break the Line is actually kind of nuts. So with Break the Line, he does do that. I mean, I guess either way, I guess Show No Fear is also another viable option, but given that Farao does in fact have a Land Raider, he can in fact break the line to get what he wants, right? So yeah, it seems like as if Dennis does have the ability to actually do a daisy chain advance into this area. So it seems like now he's going to do another deploy, and then by using another deploy, he's probably just going to get another orc boy. One tendency I notice that a lot of orc players do is they don't really tend to go towards their upper tier upgrades, even though some of them can be absolutely bananas, right? Because their level 0 units are so are so good most of the time. But okay, but it looks like as if he's going to get a city anyhow. I mean, I think that actually makes sense. Like, one of the ways I like to think of cities is they're basically level 0 units, static level 0 units that give you good ability, that give you the opportunity to get better combat upgrades. Okay, so it looks like as if there's going to be yet another major, massive battle, and it's going to have that. So it's going to gets them. And there's also a Bastion. I think the Bastion has to be there as well. Okay, so the orcs are going to roll 6 dice. Wait, what about the Bastion? I think that the Bastion was there, wasn't there? Oh, okay. Ooh, okay, now that's a pretty intriguing... It's pretty intriguing. I mean, looks like it's as if it's going to be a complete slaughter fest at this point. So, I'm going to have to take a look and see what's going to go. So, it looks like as if he's going to could get Sea of Green. I mean, Sea of Green is a pretty useful set of options right there, right? But, yeah, maybe I probably would have forced the situation a little bit earlier, to be honest. But, hey, at least Farroud is ahead by 1 city, so we're going to have to take a look and see what happens. Probably going to get Hold the Line. By using Hold the Line, he's going to get some defense, I think. He could then get Break the Line too. And then from that point on, he could probably just play 2 Break the Lines in order to preserve his units, right? I mean, Orcs right now have a total morale of 6. Space Marines have a morale of 8. So it is possible for Space Marines to win. Yeah, I can conceivably see this swinging either way, though. I mean, given that Farrell has a better combat deck and he basically drew 2 Break the Lines, it is still possible for him to, yeah, he's probably gonna win based upon that alone. I mean, I guess if he ever does take any damage, he could just sack the Space Marine, right? And then he's going to use Hold the Line, which is not too surprising. Then he's probably going to get a defense. I do think that defense is probably the better. So he's got an additional 5 defense. Now with Slugga Boys, he has to reroll all of his bolt guns, and then he has to and then... Oh, geez, okay, this is actually not really panning out too well for Farrell right now. But he could always pivot the dice using Hold the Line afterwards. Okay, so Farrell inflicts 3-5 damage against the Orcs' 0 defense, so it's going to be a Slaughterfest. It's going to be a Slaughterfest for sure. And then Orcs in turn deal 8, 5. They deal 5 damage. So, it's going to happen. Okay, so far, it doesn't really look like as if it's panning out too well for Farrell, but I mean, Farrell is inflicting 5 points of damage right now, so I mean, he could kill off the Orc Knob and then just tank 1 damage on the Bastion. That could be one way of doing it, for sure. I do think that's probably the more viable option at this point. You might as well just kill off the Orc Knob. I mean, 5 is a larger total than any of the max health that any of your units have, so you're probably better off just killing the Orc Knob, right? And then just tanking the 1 damage on the Bastion. So... Yeah, because, yeah, I think that killing off the Orc Knob is the smart choice here, for sure. For sure and sure. Alrighty then. Now, if you take it now for the second combat card, could probably play Vet Scouts, but I don't know if Vet Scouts is probably a good idea. I just think that that playing 2 Break the Lines is probably just the best option. Is probably just the better option because you can just pivot your dice into morale, or heck, you could probably even try going for pure offense if you want. And on top of that, it also allows you to quash a previously played combat card, right? So by playing break the line, you're technically up by 6 defense because that's -2 offense. You get 2 defense from the native icons, and you can shift the 2 morale dice into defense. So that, oh, okay, now that's an interesting combat. So he's going to do that, and then he's also going to get rid of the offense. Okay, okay, this is a little bit more interesting than I thought. Alright, so he's probably going to get that, and then he's going to get a route. But the problem is, if he gets a route, then he can basically use Gets them to kill off the Land Raider, right? And then once the Land Raider is basically killed off, he does, well, I mean, he does no damage, but then he does get 1, 2, 3, 7, 8 damage. He does 7 damage total, so that's 2, 4, 6. Oh, that's actually pretty devastating. That is kind of devastating. I mean, Pharrell did, in fact, kill plenty of more materiel, but I do think that he probably should have... Yeah, that's why I was a little bit skeptical of him doing that. I do think that he... Okay, so he's going to just leave the Bastion as it is. And the Bastion as it is, and he's just going to kill off the Orc Knobs and the 2... And the Orc Knobs, as well as the 2 boys. So, it seems like as if, well, at the very least, the Orcs don't really have any offensive capabilities in this area anymore, unless if they try to beeline in this area, right? So we are going to have to see how Dennis manages right now. I don't really think the attack is going to be worth it at this point. I really do think that should have been a deploy order instead. Because had that been in a deploy order, maybe the additional scout that he got probably could have made a difference. But oh well, that's just the way. Oh well, but as the French say, c'est la vie. It's just how the game goes. Sometimes you just get. Sometimes RNGesus just slaps you across the face and gives you a set of dice that you may not necessarily want, but it's just how it is, right? Okay, so then after that, it seems like as if Space Marines have to reveal an advance order, but that's not going to be a very useful advance order, so to speak. Yeah, I think that there was a bit of a misplay on Pharrell on round 3, because the problem I honestly have with because the thing is, on round 3, Pharrell actually had a really good opportunity to do a deploy, advance, and then just start crushing things, a little bit more strategically, right? Like at some point or another, sometime, like if you actually crush your eliminate enough units or just remove enough units from the map, then you basically gain 2 advantages. Well, first of all, you force your opponent to do more hard signals, and uh, second of all, you obviously eliminate their stuff on the map, so they're not as likely to screw you over as much, right? So that's just how it goes. But who knows? I do think that maybe another thing but I do think that at the very least, Space Marines do have the option of capturing objective over here. At the very least, so we're gonna have to take a look and see what goes on. Okay, now the problem is he can't really reach any of the 2 units over there because they're blocked by an intermediary space over here. He could at least just scooch 2 of the Orc Boys in top left, just onto the 1 material planet, so he is at least going to get additional money. Once he gets additional, I mean, right now, Dennis Warhammer is actually getting 4, 5, 6, 8, making 9 material per turn, whereas Pharrell is only making... Pharrell's making only 6. I mean, I think normally when you're bleeding this much material, I probably would call it at this point. But the thing, I probably might call it a sizable advantage at this point. But you have to keep in mind that Pharrell has a much more upgraded combat deck, and even though his positioning has been weakened substantially especially through that last combat, I do think that Dennis has a way to maybe leverage his position to get back into the game, so to speak. So Pharrell's going to use a Dominate. He's going to get 2 reinforcement tokens, and I mean, look, at this point, you might as well get the Land Raider. You have the upgrade cards requisite for the Land Raider, right? And then now that's, yeah, that's, I think that was a bit of a mistake. I really do think that maybe one thing that Pharrell could have done is another alternative option that I think he could have done is he could have also kept the orcs pinned in the bastion and while maybe retaking or wiping off more material from the map, right? So that is one thing that he could do. And alrighty then. Okay, so both players are going to draw their Warp Storm cards, and we're going to take a look and see what happens next. Alright, yeah. Yeah, I think that Pharrell wasn't really assertive enough in quashing the orcs when he had the opportunity to do so. You know, like usually if you have an opportunity to just like to gain material or mana advantage, you might as well just do it in most games. I mean, there are some instances where you might want to save your removal options for an even better play in the future, but I think in a game like Forbidden Stars where you don't really have any sort of where you don't have where you don't necessarily have like your 7 mana unit or anything of that sort coming in much later to screw you over once when your opponent has baited out enough removal. I do think that in many circumstances, performing this play is probably the better option. But I mean, but then again, given the current situation, it's not. I don't think all hope is lost. It's got enough to. They do at least have enough to reconquer the reconquer the center of the map, right? And keep in mind that orcs right now they don't really have any offensive capabilities. I mean, I guess the orcs would probably just could probably do a dominate order into advance based upon using the bastion alone, but I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. And if it does happen, then I'm pretty sure Pharrell will in fact respond accordingly. Now, the question is, what do I think Pharrell is gonna do in this circumstance? I do think that maybe there's a couple of things that I might consider doing given his positioning right now, as of as of now. He could start swinging some income in his favor by maybe capturing this factory. He could do a double advance over here, but again, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe the double advance may not really be a good idea. Because again, there's the daisy chaining problem that occurs when you're going first. He could try to. I mean, honestly, if I was for Rao, I would consider maybe catching up in terms of production by acquiring some more material tokens, right? I guess another thing he could also do is maybe do is strategize and then just get a level 3 combat upgrade, but with hardly any units on the map, I don't think that's an optimal decision. I do think that that a that a double dom into deploy that could feasibly work because by using double dominating into a deploy, he can at least replenish his board with a truckload of units, right? He can probably he might even be able to get a Warlord Titan, and at the very least, the Warlord Titan would enable him to gain to tank additional damage, right? Like I think that one person, his name is Here's Jim. He suggested that big fat vanillas could in fact be useful on their own because you could probably use them in an offensive rally type of format, right? Like just tank 4 hits on your Titan, and then once you tank 4 hits, just play the rally card afterwards, and then just keep playing offense rally, right? So I think that an offense rally build could actually work if you do have Titans in your army, right? But I think that maybe the more feasible option is just to get a mixture of Space Marines with with Land Raiders from a double dom. I mean, right now ironically, it seems like as if orcs have flipped the board advantage at this point. So there doesn't really. So I think that if Pharrell wants to get back into the game, he should seriously consider getting reestablishing his forces. Right? I mean, developing your pieces is almost always good practice in chess, and it happens to be the case in many positional based games as well. So any games with a non-trivial position aspect. Yeah, okay. Well, it seems like as if maybe Pharrell's just wondering, oh, geez, well, how the hell did I screw up on turn 4 and turn 3? Like so. Alright, so it seems like as if, yeah, it seems like as if maybe what Pharrell needs to do is he just needs to just reestablish his forces. There's not really too much that. I think that getting. He could feasibly get 2 Land Raiders and 1 Space Marine with if he chooses to spend 3 material, right? Because if he spends 3 cash tokens, then the 2 Land Raiders will be 2 mats each, and then the Space Marine will be 1 mat. So that's basically 5 mats, which is enough to do this one over to gain enough over here. All right. So it seems like as if Dennis has a space has a safe space over here. There is a possibility that he could maybe go for a second city. I mean, cities are pretty powerful if you think about it. I mean, he does have the bank as well as the position to leverage that, right? So yeah. Sometimes you just gotta trade units a little bit more effectively. You gotta go in for the kill a little bit more assertively, right? So that round 3 was a bit of a throw for Farrell, but I do think that he does have an opportunity to maybe reestablish his his presence on the map, right? I mean, I guess one of the things that he could do in order to develop his Space Marines is he could just build a bastion on the 2 mat planet and then and then shuffle the Space Marine into a more relevant combat conflict zone, right? So that's one thing he could do. That's one thing he could do for sure. I mean, I guess if I had to make a decision based upon my current positioning as Space Marines, I can conceivably go for a double advance. If you go for a double advance and maybe capture both factories, which is doable, then you do force your opponent into a more sticky situation. You can start turning the tides yet again, right? So that's one thing you could probably do. I mean, but it seems like as if what Farrell is probably interested in doing is he's probably interested in just mopping up this place and just making sure that he doesn't just making sure that the orcs can't really perform any more order token shenanigans. Okie dokie. So the orcs are going to plan in advance, and keep in mind that this turn, I think Farrell is going first. So he could So the Orc Boys could, in fact, just sack the Space Marines over there. Yeah, this is not exactly the best thing. Yeah, it seems a little bit sticky right now. Could do a deploy option, but the problem I have with the deploy action is you could just is the orcs could just retaliate yet again with an advanced order, which he does have, based upon our current viewpoint, right? So, with that out of the way, let's see what Dennis Warhammer does. Probably going to place it on top of. Well, I can see several options. He could probably just place a dominate order and then maybe just force Farao to commit a little bit more. He could even do a counter push against Space Marines over here, but I doubt that's going to be a good option for him right there. So he's going to use. Okay, so it seems like as if he's going to do a dominate order, which makes a deploy order, which makes perfect sense. Yeah, I honestly would have been a little bit more aggressive in maybe pushing back the orcs. I do feel like as if there's been a couple of issues in regards to in regards to Pharrell's game plans. So it seems a little bit, but I don't want to judge a little bit. I don't really want to judge too quickly, right? I mean, no, hold on. I don't think he's gonna advance. Well, he could probably just advance and then just conquer back the Bastion, right? And then once when he leaves that unattended, it should be possible for him to just mop up in that area. Oh, nice. 3 defense. Wow, this is panning out to be a pretty interesting set of rules so far. Okay, so he's probably just going to get a reinforcement token just to avoid throwing, perhaps. I mean, yeah, there's not really too many viable plays I see here. He could just probably just get Faith in the Emperor and to maybe hold the line and then break the line, or he could just keep doing hold the line, break the line. It's not really. It's Space Marines have a relatively predictable play pattern when it comes to their combat cards, right? So let's take a look and see where Pharrell is planning on doing. It's very likely that he's going to be playing something of that sort. Yeah, I get the impression that Dennis is probably just going to play Sea of Green, because it does add additional morale, but I mean, you're playing against Space Marines. He already has 5 morale against the Bastion's 4 morale, so Sea of Green would turn into 5, but then he could just play Break the Line. I mean, hold the line in order to get more morale, so he's probably just going to get 2 defense. And I do think that at this point, the defense die is probably just going to be really redundant. So okay, so he can't gain additional morale tokens. He does, in fact, gain a reinforcement token. That's not really enough. Okay, well, it's just going to be very humdrum from this point on. I don't know if Break the Line is the best option. I probably would wait for turn 3 in order for Break the Line to work a little bit more. But I don't know. I guess Break the Line isn't really too bad. It does at least give you additional defense, but it doesn't really help you race for morale. I probably would have just played Hold the Line again, and then maybe just do Break the Line yet, and then just do Break the Line on the second turn, because it does allow me to pick between 2 options as opposed to 1, right? So he does get Meganons. He's forced to reroll again. That's a bit of a liability. So now with Break the Line, he's got 3 offense. Oh no, he can just tank the 2 defense. Okay, so well, congratulations, Orcs. You've given the Space Marines 1 additional morale die. That's one of the reasons why I think that I mean, normally I probably wouldn't really choose Wa over any other combat card, but against Space Marines, it's probably a much better build option, especially considering how much morale Space Marines can spam, right? And if you combine Wa with Sea of Green, you can start routing relatively easily while still and create an actual morale advantage, right? I mean, the best that your offensive cards are probably going to do anyways is probably route Space Marine. So you might as well just get something that's a little bit more direct while having additional advantages attached to it. So, okay, but it seems like as if in this case, Furrow's probably just going to win this. There's I don't see any conceivable way of Orcs winning this battle, because they only have 5 morale, and while Sea of Green does give them an additional morale, that's still 6 morale against the Space Marines 3, 5, 6, 7 morale. So that's not going to cut it. And considering that Pharrell has already played Hold the Line, he's probably just going to get more morale, right? So yeah. Okay, so despite Pharrell's miscalculations earlier on, he is recovering. He's not throwing nearly as badly as I think he does. And unfortunately, Sea of Green only works if you have strictly more units, and Bastions don't count as units, so hold on. Let me see if there's going to be a possible rules infraction. Because there is a possibility. Bastions do not count as units. So, we gotta take a look at that. Yeah, I don't think the Theater's gonna do that. So then there's 2 bulk guns against a crap ton of defense. There's 3 bulk guns against enough defense to cancel it out, so there's not really too much. So Farao does win, in fact, by morale, and so he retakes the bastion, which is rightfully his. I mean, technically every building or property that belongs to any player in Forbidden Stars belongs to the Imperium of Man. No filthy foul Xenos can possibly ever have them. So, yeah, okay. It seems like as if Farao did a good job at reconquering the system. I'm not exactly sure how. Well, I guess a deploy could actually work. He could get a bastion, but maybe a factory is the better option because now that he has a Sim City in the top right, he could, whenever he does strategize using Directive Faithful, he could just transform the bastion into a city. So maybe having a factory is probably the better option in this case, or heck, maybe even a bastion as well. Okay, so it seems like as if orcs are starting to transition into their late game technologies, and then Farao, he's going to use an advanced order token. He's probably just going to place him on top. Now, I don't know why he's not developing his forces. He really should be spending some mats to get more units, right? Again, I find that a little bit puzzling. Maybe he probably should have went for a dominate over there. If he went for a dominate, then at least he could have gotten a bit more economics, right? I think at this point, you really gotta just contest the board a little bit more strongly, not die, right? So that's what I think. But hey, I think Farao's still doing reasonably well. His combat upgrades, he still at least has a more upgraded combat deck. Now, one of the things I'm wondering about Farao is I really wonder if he's going to go for Emperor's Glory, especially considering that he has vet scouts, because you can get Emperor's Glory, and then once when you do that, you can convert any of your dice into morale. So then once you convert your dice into morale, you can follow it up with Vet Scouts and get 5 additional offense on 1 turn. But I don't know. I think maybe Emperor's might could be a little bit better. You sometimes just gotta throw in that left hook or that left jab if you wanna win things, right? I mean, I feel like as if his deck is already saturated with defense, so I don't really think he needs as much defense as he normally does, right? So he's got additional offense. Okay, so it seems like as if Farao is now going to. I mean, he only has an order token over there. That's the only thing he can do. So he might as well, right? Yeah, he's got 7 material. He's making 7 mats this turn, and then this turn, orcs are making 3, 5, 6, 7, 8. So he is at least gradually reclaiming material or income parity, right? It's just that I think what kind of concerns me about orcs is I can see orcs potentially attacking the system over there. It is doable, especially considering how he has 2 onslaught attack ships. With the 2 onslaught attack ships, he could just move one of the ships over there, and then once when he creates enough of a long enough supply chain, he can then just move a lot of orc boys into the 2-man planet, right? And that could create a further income swing. So, I mean, to Farao's credit. Oh, geez. Oh, wait. Orcs actually have 2 cities now. They can actually purchase battle wagons and Orc Knobs. Oh, I don't think that's going to bode too well, you know? I mean, Battle Wagons and Orc Knobs, they have 2 morale each, so it's going to be a little bit. Yeah, it's not. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared for Faral here because Orcs could just attack with 4 units, and then by attacking with 4 units, it's kind of hard to defend against that. I really do think that Faral should have just disrupted the logistical supply chain of the Orcs just 2 rounds earlier, because had it not been for the factory in the center, because one of the big advantages that you get from disrupting supply chains is you're also forcing your opponent to signal. And then when you force your opponent to signal, and to signal by recapturing, by either recapturing their supply chain or by diverting the focus, you can then see what might happen next, right? So that you might then it might then be possible to to actually maybe to force your opponent to stack order tokens a little bit more favorably, right? So again, I think that wild material advantage is definitely important. Sometimes in a 2-player game, you just gotta kill off your opponent's units, right? I mean, I think one time I was actually playing as Space Marines against playing as Eldar against Space Marines. There's a player who made a really forced attack against against an area that I was defending using a bastion, using a bastion, using a bastion, a falcon, and an aspect warrior. At the end of the combat, I ended up losing only the bastion, but he lost 10 material worth of units. So there's that trade-off you gotta keep in mind. Alrighty then. So I think Pharrell is obviously going to commit a reinforcement token. I think it's just too important to not do. Fortunately, he does, while he does have Break the Line, he doesn't really have anything with which he can use it. To be perfectly honest, I think that when Pharrell had strategized, I really do think that maybe Show No Fear would have been a much better upgrade, because it procs using your command level 1 units, and on top of that, it prevents your units from being routed. So if your opponent just even deals 3 damage to your to your Land Raider, it doesn't really do it. It can't really. It's not enough to. You can basically just cancel the damage entirely, right? So if you take a look, okay, so it seems like as if maybe he's probably going to use Hold the Line. I don't know. I mean, Break the Line is okay. It's not the best option. Vet Scouts is not too bad. Yeah, maybe Hold the Line is probably the best option, but I mean, he's got Biker Knobs, so it's going to use Hold the he's going to use Biker Knobs, and then by using Biker Knobs, he's gonna force offense. So he's got so far Orcs have 6 guns. No, they have 7 guns, and then Hold the Line gives Space Marines 2 defense. I'm going to assume he's just going to get more defense dice. I mean, it's kind of predictable how Space Marines play. Oh, he's going to go for a morale die. That's kind of interesting. I usually don't really like using Vet Scouts because they're kind of. It's pretty. It's a somewhat below average card under most circumstances, but it seems like as if he's got 4, 6, 7 against 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's no damage taken. And then if you take a look at this one, he's probably going to get Vet Scouts yet again. I mean, if you're going to use Vet Scouts just to get an additional defense token, I still think that having the defense die would have just been strictly better. But then again, Orcs have all these reroll mechanics, so maybe Vet Scouts are a good hedge against it. Okay, so it seems like as if your opponent you must reroll. Oh, okay, so it's referring to the Orcs. They have to reroll all the defense dice, and then obviously Space Marines have to reroll 1 defense die, so it doesn't really do much. And then over here, Vet Scout by having vet scouts, he has one morale token, and then by using one morale token, he does get he does have the opportunity to gain either one temp offense or a temp defense. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 against 5. So he has a temp defense of 4. Could just kill off a scout. He could probably just kill off a scout. I think maybe that's kill off a. If he gets one defense, he could just kill off a scout and then just tank the rest on the bastion. So I don't know. It seems like as if that's probably the best play at this point, the better play. You know, I mean, vet scouts is. I don't know. I'm not really too fond of that card. I would actually much rather have drop pod assault, because drop pod assault can also be used defensively, right? I mean, if you have drop pod assault, it gives you an additional die, which is surprisingly good as Space Marines, and on top of that, you get to take one morale die. You also get additional hit points by summoning a Space Marine from another role, right? So he's going to get one defense, and I'm going to suspect that he's gonna use it to retreat the Space Marine. I guess he might as well just save whatever he can, right? Okay, so it seems like as if there's going to be some income parity. Then, for defense, he can kill off the reinforcement token as well, and then just tank the rest of the bastion. Huh, yeah, that was a bit of a misplay. Honestly, the fact that veteran scouts is less useful than even Blessed Power Armor says quite a bit about that card. I really do think that Blessed Power Armor would have been a much more feasible option, right? Because if you can just keep converting, I just don't think that was a good play. I think that a better sequence of plays was to play Blessed Power Armor and then just shield up and turtle up. That's probably the better play. I really do think that probably would have a much more viable strategy. But oh well, that's just how the cookie crumbles at this point. And then now Farao gets the second defense, but then the second defense is wasted. So unfortunately, Farao has 2 wasted orders this turn, and yeah, I mean, I can still see Farao coming back to this game if he just plays his cards a little bit more wisely, but it's still doable. But I think the problem is Dennis Warhammer. He's in a position where he can in fact leverage his board position into a win, because he already does have regional hegemony in these 2 areas. So Space Marines cannot possibly block. Cannot possibly place any order tokens over there, right? And then he's basically free to do what he wants in this area. Well, this is an interesting upset. I never anticipated that this game could turn out this way. It seems like you see, that's one of the reasons why sometimes you just gotta you really have to nip problems in the bud, or else they're gonna come back to bite you in the ass a lot harder later on. Okay, so let's take a look. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, by keeping the warp storms on their own, it does at least prevent them from moving. And yeah, I'm not exactly sure if he really wants to place a bastion, though. It seems a little bit. Seems a little bit redundant. I don't think that well, he could place the bastion over there, and he could probably use a Direct the Faithful and transform it into another structure, right? So I guess if you use that tactic while using Direct the Faithful, you could get a double factory over here, or you could probably just get a double. You could probably get triple cities at this point, right? So yeah, I'm honestly a little bit surprised that Farrell hasn't really hasn't really considered redeploying any of his lost units, especially considering how Space Marines have the advantage of having 6 level 2 units. I mean, I know a lot of people think that Space Marines are relatively defensive, and they are, and that is more or less true most of the time. But I do think that under Norm, that once we start hitting Tech 2, you should probably start making some more tank pushes. I mean, their tank units are I consider their tank units some of the relatively top tier. They're easy to manufacture. They have a good, well-rounded set of stats and an absolutely ridiculous combat card, which when timed correctly will demolish your opponent, right? So it's a little bit scuffed, but let's take a look and see what Dennis Warhammer does. Okay, so it seems like as if maybe he's just going to dominate, which makes perfect sense. I mean, there's literally nothing threatening him over there. The Pharrell could go for a strategize and then maybe get a level 3 combat upgrade, but I think he really needs to redevelop his pieces. I mean, you gotta be a little bit more proactive. In a game like Forbidden Stars, you have to learn how to be proactive. You gotta redevelop your pieces if you're once when they go bye bye, right? I mean, there's not. Otherwise, you're just not gonna. You're probably not gonna. It's probably not gonna end too well for you. I think it's. Yeah, he really. I think Pharrell really needs to redeploy here. He really needs to see what goes on. I see a potential for a counter push if Farao does manage to maybe reclaim the 2 Mad Planet over here somehow. I do think that maybe that's not a horrible idea if he does reclaim it. And then now, if you take a look at at Dennis, it looks like as if he's just gonna get. Yeah, it seems like as if maybe he's just developing his newfound bases just to just to leverage whatever advantages he still has. All right, just to further whatever advantages that he does have. Alrighty. Okay, so Space Marines are going to use a Dominator in that sector as well. He's probably going to upgrade the Space Marine into a Land Raider, perhaps. So that's probably what he plans on doing. And now, when it comes to orcs, orcs are going to let's take a look and see what they're what they plan on doing. There's a hmm. Well, I guess if I was playing as orcs, I could probably consider reinforcing these fronts. Or another thing you could also consider doing is maybe capturing the city and then going for a strategize. That could also be pretty viable. Like sometimes whenever I'm on 2 cities, I don't necessarily get my third. I don't necessarily get my combat my Tech 3 combat upgrades by building another city. Sometimes I just prefer to steal it from another player and then leverage it and then just use it to my advantage at that point, right? So let's see what orcs plan on doing. I do think that maybe that at the very least you should consider just developing your pieces more. Just keep developing your pieces. Don't leave the buildings in the back line, but then once when you have enough structure, and then just put your units in the front lines where they matter most, right? So yeah, it seems like as if based upon the current situation right now, I do think that orcs have the possibility of maybe nabbing or even conquering their second objective as long as orcs are playing it correctly, right? But at the same time, I do think that that...
Hey, Papa.
Oh, hey Alex.
Yes. This.
Yes, yes, yeah. This has definitely turned out to be a more interesting game than I thought it was gonna be. You know, like I think that on turn 3 or turn 4, there was a there was an opportunity for Farao to just basically do a double sweep and then just kill off some units on the board, right? But I think it's a little bit late for that. But I do think that it is still possible for it could actually be anybody's game at this point. There is, I mean, I guess at this point I might probably be shifting my bets more in favor of the Orcs, right? The Orcs have found a way to reestablish dominance in the center, whereas Space Marines are they've they've fallen behind a little, but their combat upgrades still remain strong. So there is still a possibility for Space Marines for either one of them to win at this point. Huh, well that's strange. I really wonder what's taking so long for the Orcs to decide at this point. Seems Honestly, I would just continuously leverage my advantage at this point. At the very least, you could consider just advancing a little bit more. No, but he's probably just going to use a bit more. He's probably just going to do a bit more economics, right? Just use a strategize order. The strategize makes perfect sense. Yeah, okay. Well, that makes sense. I do think that having that Space Marines reconquering the sector in the center, make that would allow Space Marines to reestablish their dominance yet again, right? Okay, so it seems like as if Space Marines do have at the very least, do have the set of orders that are necessary for conquering the center of the map, for retaking the center of the map. So let's take a look and see what orcs have to say about this. Problem is, the orcs are actually in a slightly strange dilemma. If they put an advance order token over there, then they could just do that, and then Space Marines. Well, he could just cover. He could just do a double advance. Yeah, I think a double advance would actually make the most sense because by being able to reconquer the two material planets now that the orcs are a little bit overextended, he, Farao can start leveraging, can start regaining the income advantage. And I think in this case, he would at least get more parity in that case. All right, so it looks like as if Dennis is going to go for a third city. Okay, now this is actually kind of spooky. Dennis goes for the if Dennis ends up getting 3 cities, especially if they're relatively well tucked away rather well in the rear, it's not. He has the potential to go for any one of these Tech 3 upgrades. And honestly, even you don't even need a Gargan in order for level 3 Orc upgrades to be good. They're just so loaded with icons that even by themselves, they're you can do a lot with just even one Orc warrior, even with a small army, right? So it's a little bit concerned for Pharrell. You could spend one material and then maybe get a Space Marine, and maybe get a Land Raider. I don't think that's a bad option. I don't think that's a horrible option, but it seems like as if he wants to keep a more diversified unit comp in order to trigger, so he has more unit triggers. So let's see what he plans on doing. Alright, so I suspect that Farao is going to use a deploy order into an advance because there are too many ways for him to do so without using a deploy first. Now, orcs could in fact get strategize and then start getting their level. Oh, so okay, so it seems like as if the orcs have spent money down to 3 mats, so I don't think they're gonna get additional Income. So it doesn't seem like as if they're going to go for a level 3 combat upgrade at this point. Alright, so Pharrell's going to build a tank and 2 Space Marines. And using those tanks and using that tank and 2 Space Marines, I do think that he's going to just conquer the system. He's just going to start the reconquest of the center of the map. So take a look at that. He's going to use a dominate order, and then by using dominate, I think the orcs, they're going to get forge token and a reinforcement token. That seems a little bit strange. It seems like as if orcs are throwing a bit of tempo in order to establish more in order to get a bit more of an economic advantage, but I don't know. I think that the Space Marines, they more or less just push using their regular set of units and just using their newly deployed army, right? So their newfound army. So it turns out that he is in fact going to reconquer the factory right there, and then on top of that, he's going to use a dominate, and then orcs will respond with a dominate, get a cash token, and potentially use a cash token and a forge token to get a Gargant. Interesting choice. I still think that it is possible for Pharrell to win against a Gargant. I mean, it's just one Titan if you look at it. It only has 3 morale and it rolls 3 dice only. So, I mean, it is possible for the Gargant to possibly to make a counterattack next turn, considering how Telegos, sorry, I mean Dennis Warhammer is gonna go second, right? So, guess it is feasible, but I do think that it's okay. So Pharrell is just going to kill an onslaught attack ship instead, choking him off, and thereby choke off the Gargant from the rest of the map. Alrighty then. So, 4 against 2. It's 4 against... Oh no, it's 4 against 1 with a slightly better upgraded combat deck. And then now he is gonna get... Yeah, I really wonder what's gonna be... Oh, wait, he's going to use a reinforcement token. Oh, that seems a little bit... odd. Not sure why he would need a reinforcement token. Well, I guess maybe he probably just doesn't want to get beaten back with Sea of Green, right? So, with the current set of hands, it seems like as if it's a relatively... it's pretty straightforward. I mean, you could either break the line or hold the line. Either way, it probably doesn't really matter. It's just gonna be... I think Space Marines are just gonna do what Space Marines do best. Just do a very standard push. It's not really... Don't really see a way out for orcs. I mean, he could probably get Snapper Gargant, and by summoning the Snapper Gargant, he could... He gains 4 additional guns, which is 5 guns, and then using 5 guns, it is still possible to maybe route a Space Marine cruiser, but given that Space Marines have a crap ton of normal units, have a crap ton of defensive options, that's probably not the best play. Oh, wait, okay, so it seems like as if Vlad Belmont does in fact have Snapper Gargant as one of his upgrade cards. Okay, so he has at least hit Tech 3 a little bit earlier. He is deciding to put in the reinforcement token as a result of that. Could probably go for Snapper Gargan. This Snapper Gargan could work out. Okay, so it seems like as if Farao is just going to open up with Hold the Line, which is a very, very standard opener that doesn't surprise me too much. It's just a standard Hold the Line. And he could have responded with Snapper Gargan for 4 additional bulk guns, but Hold the Line on average will generate an additional 4 defense in favor of Space Marines. But I guess deploying Snapper Gargan right now could at least set him up for future turns. Oh, okay. Well, it seems like as if Dennis has also gotten Party Wagon as well. But Party Wagon doesn't really have any procs in this area. Could probably get, yeah, I think that may be the best play. I actually think that Snapper Gargan could be a good play, even if Hold the Line is in fact the play that the Space Marines will do, because Hold the Line will generate 4 defense, and then the 4 additional offense that Snapper gives will at least cancel out. But keep in mind that the 4 defense that the 4 defense only applies right now. So then the very next turn, there's going to be 2 offense. He's going to have at least a 2 offense advantage, and then using the 2 offense advantage, he could leverage that into a greater play. So, not entirely sure. He could get Party Wagon. So it seems like he's going to deploy Snapper Gargan anyhow. And by getting Snapper Gargan, he is going to gain crap ton of bulk guns. I mean, that's enough. I mean, at the very least, the Space Marines do hold the line valiantly, so they don't suffer any damage. But the Orcs, in fact, actually suffer 1 damage in turn because of 3 guns versus the 1 defense. So one of the reinforcement tokens is in fact routed. Alright, so it seems like as if what he's planning on doing next is he wants to use a Mega Nods. By using the Mega Nods, he probably just wants to force his opponent to reroll all defense dice in the hopes of maybe getting an opening against the Space Marines, right? So then and he gets 1 defense in exchange. Alright, so with Break the Line, he can't really do much, and then 6 bulk guns against 4 defense, so then he is in fact forced to route his Onslaught attack ship. So with 6 bulk guns in the Space Marines' favor, I do think that it is possible for yeah, I can see this as a Space Marine victory, but he does have Party Wagon, but Party Wagon won't really trigger too much. I mean, there's not really much that Party Wagon can really do. It gives him 1 additional morale, but that's about it. And the Blessed Power Armor allows him to, and Blessed Power Armor allows Farao to get additional defense, which is always nice against the Orcs. Let's take a look and see what he plans on doing. I mean, I think either way he plays it, either Party Wagon or Mega Nods, I do think I don't really see the Orcs really winning anytime soon. They have 6 bulk guns against 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, that's Blessed Power Armor is a defense spike of 5, so that's not enough to kill things. Well, I mean, he could probably force a reroll, right? So it's Blessed Power Armor. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think it's probably best just to pivot to defense, honestly, because at least if you pivot towards because the problem is both units are basically routed at this point, so you might as well just 3 guns. Yeah. Alrighty then. So, Orcs have a total attack of 5, 6, 7 against the Space Marines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, the Space Marines defend, but they deal no damage in return. So, yeah, Space Marines win yet another morale victory. Whoop-de-doo. Very big surprise. Very big surprise there. So, yeah, it's probably what's going on. It's probably what's going on right now. Oh, okay. Well, I think I can finally understand why Faral is trying to do what he's doing, because the thing is, by getting a strike, because the thing is, now that he has a death ball comp supported by a good set of units over here, he can actually start beelining towards his second objective while defending the orc objective on this on in his home system. So I actually do okay. So it seems like as if maybe Farao is probably just going for an objective capture at this point. I do think which seems more sensible if you think about it, right? I mean, by going for objective capture, you're you're actually more likely to win at this point. And I do think that Farao does have plenty of ways to defend the current objective over here. In order for orcs to get to that objective, he would have to. Okay, alrighty then. I see. So Pharrell moves the warp storm down into this corner. So I mean, it is still possible for Dennis Warhammer to capture the second objective by daisy chaining into top right and subsequently into bottom right, but don't really think that's going to work too. But I don't think it's going to really work too well. It doesn't really look like something that could pan out. You could. Yeah, I'm not sure what the best option is. It seems like as if that's probably the better option, right? Because if your opponent because there's only 4 different directions the warp storm could move, so there is a chance that the warp storm could in fact block the orcs from moving over. Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Sorry. It was Dennis's turn to move the warp storm. All right. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the best way to move warp storm, because by doing that, you open up the only way the the only way that you're going to reach the second objective in time is by going in an L for it is by placing two advanced order tokens and then just going in an L formation. That's probably the only thing. Okay, so he's got Work with the Righteous, and he's going to be placing a Warp Storm right over here. That could work. I can see that work. Sure. And then with Work of the Righteous, he is getting. Hold on, I just want to see what Work of the Righteous does. So with Work of the Righteous, he is going to gain either assets or material from a specific role. Which role isn't going to be? I don't think he's going to use Work of the Righteous. Oh no, he probably didn't. He's probably just using it only for Warp Storm movement. I don't think he's strategized at all this turn. Okay, so I think that as long as if Farao doesn't throw for the second time in this game, he should be able to capture the objective in bottom left. So let's take a look and see what he plans on doing. This is turn 7, so Farao is going first, whether he likes it or not. I would probably, at this point, I think just placing an advanced order token on the very bottom of the stack would make the most sense because it's a one-pot planet. So Farouz just going to get an attacker advantage by doing so. Now, the other thing that I do think that Farouz should consider doing is possibly defending his the objective in his home system, right? Because if he doesn't defend well enough, then I do think that Orcs would probably win via tiebreak. At that point, Orcs could control 5, 6, 7, 8 planets, with Farao controlling only 6 planets after taking over the second objective, right? So I guess if they want to do like a trade or an objective trade, that is one viable strategy that either one of them could go for, but so we're just going to have to take a look and see how it goes. Okay, so it looks like as if Farao is probably just going to get. Oh, he's going to use a deploy order. Well, that's a little bit more. That's a pretty curious play. I wonder what he plans on doing there. Does he want to build a ship? Build a larger ship? It's strange. Strange move. Strange move. I mean, given the current situation of the map, he could just go for an advance and then just win doing that. But no, he chooses to go for a deploy. That's a bit of a strange choice of order. I really wonder how Dennis is going to respond to this. Okay, so taking a look at the map, there are not too many different. I guess if I was playing as the Orcs, I wonder what I would probably do in this situation. I guess I could. Yeah, maybe I could go for a double advance, but there is a possibility that it could get blockaded, right? I think one of the things that you could do as second player, if you want to do a daisy chain, advance, is just to place your first advanced order token into the second area that you want to go um and then just place your second advanced order token into the first area that you want to go. So in that case, you're guaranteed the ability to get to the places where you want to get, right? But I guess I guess that could work, although that does make you vulnerable to counter charges in some ways. But if you position your troops and your ships correctly, it is possible to mitigate that circumstance entirely. Okie dokie. So let's take a look and see what he plans on doing. I do think that a double advance would probably make a decent amount of sense in this regard, because it is possible, because you don't necessarily, because daisy chaining is not, because it is mathematically impossible for player one to block the second player's daisy chains, right? So got to keep that in mind when making his maneuvers. Or is Dennis just going to turtle up a little bit more and then just develop his pieces? I mean, I guess another option you could also do as Orcs is just develop your pieces from this sector, because the Orc boys really have no reason to be in top left anymore. It's more or less just dominated by Orcs at that point. There's not. I don't really see too many sneaky options that Space Marines can use in order to attack behind the lines, so to speak. And even if the Space Marines did have an option to do so, I just don't. That's probably not the most viable play for them at this point. I do think that the most viable play for Space Marines at this point is just to capture their second objective. But I don't really think that's going to happen anytime. But Yeah, yeah. Well, that's very strange. I'm still puzzling over the decision for Rao to place the defense order token, to place a deploy at the very bottom of bottom left. Seems a little bit strange. Okay, so it seems like his orcs do in fact. Hold on, wait. Oh no, oh no, is my computer freezing up? Oh, okay, alright, okay, everything's good. So it seems like his orcs do in fact are in fact placing their advanced order token on the second area. They want to invade. So one of the things you can do to respond as first player is to use an advance order on top, to block either using an advance order or using a deploy order. I think either way should be okay, right? So that would be one way. One way you could do it, sure. I think defending using advance could pan out for Space Marines at this point because it is possible there there are two avenues. There are two basic avenues from which Space Marines. No, there's actually three basic avenues from which Space Marines can approach it. They can either approach it from top right, bottom center, or even within the home system itself. So I'm trying to see how Space Marines could conceivably defend against the second objective push from orcs. Alrighty then. So it seems like what he's planning on doing is it's going to be a deploy, which is pretty feasible, although which can work. But I mean, keep in mind that the orcs can attack with up to 5 units. So unless if they can attack with up to 5 units, right? So even with a land raider defending in conjunction with a bastion, it's going to be one hell of a pitched battle to fight against, right? So yeah, maybe that's probably not gonna. I don't think that's necessarily the best. The I don't think that a space that a land raider and a bastion by themselves would be able to defend that area unless if Ralph has a plan on maybe whittling down the orcs' numbers early enough. He could try to go for a battle wagon and then just suppress the battle wagon and the knob because those are the most dangerous units. Even with with those suppressed, I think that the best that the orc can possibly bring at this point is just up to two orc boys, right? Because orc box only works once a round, and you can only send up to 2 units. So let's see what Farao does. I I really think that a countercharge would be a really nice move. I think that maybe the countercharge would probably be the one of the better options right here. He could even do a countercharge within his own home system for sure. Within top right by placing the advanced order token over there. That can also work. So let's see what he does. Okay, so it seems like as if placing the deploy order token on the bottom has in fact diverted an order token from the orcs. He's did in fact divert a deploy order. Okay, well, never mind. It seems like as if orcs only have one advanced token. So, one advanced remaining. So with only one advanced... Well, actually with one advanced remaining, it is still possible for Space Marines to... It is still possible for orcs to capture these places, but I do think, but I actually do think that if that one of the best ways to counteract these moves is to possibly just do an advance order, and then maybe do an advance defense, and then maybe just use an advanced order on top. I think that may be the most feasible option that Pharao has at this point in order to prevent the orcs from mega screwing with him is to just place an advanced token on top, and then by using an advanced token, it does at least force the orcs to. Well, the only way the orcs are going to get there is by placing the advanced token on top right? But I mean, he might not be able to do that without the requisite units. Okay, so Pharao has to go first, and then using his orders, let's see what he plans on doing first. Could use, it's an interesting point. Yeah, it seems like as if maybe what he's planning on doing is, okay, so it seems like as if Pharao just wants to force the situation now before it becomes too late. So he's going to use a tank and a space marine to do the Emperor's bidding. He's got 5 dice against 5 dice. Alright, so this looks pretty favorable for the Space Marine so far. Now, keep in mind that the Battle Wagon does have the ability to summon more reinforcement tokens. So, there is a chance that he could do so. Now, I guess in this case, Hold the Line could work, but I would actually rather just get less power armor, because less power armor just allows me to just shield up and get more defense that way. But I guess Hold the Line works as well. Hold the Line is a perfectly legit play, and then I think that for the next 2 turns, I think Pharao can just constantly play Break the Line to just get rid of as many nasty orc cards as possible. So, ooh, that is pretty wicked. He's got 2 Gargant cards at the ready, so he's got Hold the Line, and then by using Hold the Line, he's going to get 2 defense. And I'm going to assume that Space Marines are just going to get an additional defense die, so he has a total of 5 defense against the 4 bolt guns of the orcs, and that's enough to he has enough to shrug the hits off. Alrighty then. Okay, so it's basically a nothing round. It's basically a nothing burger round. Now, obviously, I think he's just going to play Break the Line. I think Break the Line is just too obvious of a play right here. So it seems like as if he's going to use Break the Line. He's going to force the Snapper Gargant. He's going to chuck the Snapper Gargant. And then he does have Snapper Gargant as second option, but Space Marines still have enough defense to shrug off the hits. Now, this third option is, you guessed it, it's probably going to be yet another Break the Line, and don't think it's going to go too well. I think maybe Sea of Green is probably the better play at this point. It does at least give him some degree of rallies, but but I think that even if you route a Space Marine, you do have a Land Raider. So with the Land Raider remaining, I think he can still win by using morale. So let's take a look and see what the morale count for orcs is. With Sea of Green, it's going to be 6. It's going to be 6, 7, 8. With whoa, what the hell just happened? Oh, okay, well maybe they just need to reload or refresh something. But okay, alright. I think Sea of Green is probably the better option. That is so strange. Look, man, you don't have to use the buttons to... You don't have to constantly click on your button. You don't even have to press the play button in order to use it. It's okay, man. It's okay. I think he's probably just going to go for another Break the Line. I don't see why he wouldn't go. I mean, he's got 3 morale. He's got a total of 6 morale. Okay, so we're going to take a look and see what happens next. So he's going to use Break the Line, and he's going to get rid of the defense, and then using Sea of Green, he gets 1 reinforcement tokens, and then I think he's probably just going to spend the morale die. You might as well spend the morale die. You should. Because you have 3, 6, 7, 8, and then you have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, jeez. 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that's a bit of a... Okay, well, this has panned out to be... This has turned out to be a little bit different than I had anticipated. I guess... Maybe Pharrell got a little bit too greedy. I don't think Break the Line was completely necessary. He could have either went for... I guess he probably could have gone for Faith of the Emperor, but now he's got 2, 6, 2, 5. He's got 8 morale. He's got 1, 2, 4, 6, 7, 8 morale. So... he actually has to retreat. Well, isn't that interesting? Isn't that interesting? Who would have thought that actually would have failed? Oh no, okay, well I guess in this case, then there's really not much that Pharrell could really do to defend this position. He would need an incredibly lucky set of rolls in order to be able to do so, right? Like, I think that if Dennis Warhammer were to attack, he could just invade with 3 of his forces, including the battle wagon and the Nog. Yikes, this doesn't really look too good, and he doesn't even have to use Orc Rocks in order to do it, right? So, yeah, I think I'll probably just call it at this point. Oh, and it's even worse. He's getting 2 additional reinforcement tokens. So, I don't really think... So, it seems like as if maybe... he's just gonna... Yeah, it doesn't really seem like as if there's really much of a way out for... Okay, now that's just absolutely disgusting. That is absolutely gross right there. He can just get... So now he's probably just going to invade with 2 battle wagons and a Nog on top of that. That is absolutely gross. I don't think that there's really much that Pharrell can really do at this point in order to win the battle. Oh, okay. Maybe not all hope is lost. He's just going to use the scheme to rally his units, and it does at least force him to do an open pass. Alrighty then. Still, I don't think it really matters at this point, because using his ships, Dennis can just capture the city, and then from the city he could just attack using the order token. Yeah, I'm really not sure if this was the best option right here. I guess maybe deploy might have been a little bit better, but the open passing is just it's a little bit much. I don't think he could. But then again, could Pharrell have possibly done anything differently? It just seems a little... I don't know if that open pass was enough to delay the inevitable, so to speak, because either way, the advanced order token is at the very bottom of the stack, so it has to be resolved. So it's impossible to prevent the orcs from actually beelining all the way towards the bottom right of the map. So, yeah, this doesn't really seem all that. Yeah, this doesn't really seem all that fantastic for Rao at this point. I do think that maybe leaving one ship would have been the better option. So now he's just going to use an advance order token. He's going to move a ship. He doesn't even need Orc Rocks at this point. He can just move. Honestly, I would just move the battle wagon, and maybe just a knob because you really don't need the extra income at this point. It seems a little bit pointless, right? So there's not really too too much that Pharrell can really do. I mean, maybe by some freak accident, Space Marines end up with like what 10 or 11 morale, and then afterwards, and then maybe the orcs get beaten back. But battle wagons and nods have 2 morale each, which is actually pretty solid, at least for at least if you're talking about the orcs anyhow, right? So yeah, he's just gonna send in 2 battle wagons and a knob, conquering that city. But I mean, yeah, there's I don't really see too much of an out for Space Marines at this point. Yeah, it seems like as if there's not really too much they can do. But wait, why would you not want to bring your full set of forces? I mean, you're close to winning, and on top of that, you're going to win by territorial advantage anyhow, right? So I don't think you really have to. Oh, okay. Well, I guess he probably just wants to actually win by territorial advantage. He's got. I mean, so far the Orcs control 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planets, whereas Space Marines control only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So he could win by just straight up planetary control. There's not really. You could just bring in the extra fighting forces, but then again, orcs do have the ability to spam a crap ton of reinforcement tokens via their combat cards, right? So maybe it's not. Maybe it really isn't. So with that out of the way, I think Pharrell's probably just going to do a deploy order. Probably just wants to get the battle over with and say, well, let's just see what the final results are. Okay. So with that, Pharrell's just going to use a deploy order, and then he's just going to. He can't really build much. He can only build Land Raider. Doubt that the Land Raider is going to help too much against the incoming onslaught. It's just not really much that he's gonna do. I think that if I was playing this, I would probably consider just placing an advanced order token in the home system as opposed to the other one. Okay, well, it seems like as if he's using a Space Marine, but wait, hold on a second. That doesn't really make much sense. Why would you use a Space Marine when break the line when many of your defensive cards proc using land raiders? I really don't get this, man. Are you trying to? I'm really not sure what's going on here, but maybe it's because he probably just wants a bit of redundancy. Maybe, yeah. Honestly, orcs are just ahead. I really do think that the orcs are just committed to reinforcement tokens and just seal the deal. There's no real. I don't really think that there's any real reason to not play conservative. Okay, so 6. Okay, so orcs already have 6 morale. Now, there are several things that Space Marines can do. You could probably play Blessed Power Armor, or maybe Faith in the Emperor. They could probably do Blessed Power Armor. I think Blessed Power Armor is probably the best choice. Break the Line doesn't really do too much. If really, I do think that building a Space Marine instead of a Land Raider was a bit of a mistake, because the Land Raider gives you additional dice, and on top of that, it gives such a powerful combat trigger to break the line. It's absolutely nuts. Okay, so he's going to get... Alright, so the Orcs are opening up with a party wagon, and then if he has more unrouted units, he's going to get some additional... He's going to get additional... he's going to get some additional temporary offensive defense. The Space Marines are going to use Break the Line. He's... Oh! Oh, jeez. Oh, no, wait, what? Seems a little bit strange. Okay, maybe he's just... Wait, I'm a little bit confused. What just happened? I think he probably just tanked the damage on the Bastion. I think that's what probably would happen. Alright, so he's got Faith in the Emperor, which is 1 die, and he can either gain additional... He can gain 2 dice using Faith in the Emperor, although... Oh, heretical as this might sound, I don't really have much faith at this point. I do think that Orcs can still win with an overwhelming... with an actual morale advantage, which is pretty unusual for Orcs, you know? Like, I normally don't expect Orcs to win via morale, particularly not against Space Marines, but here we are. He's got 9 morale, Space Marines have 6 morale, and if Farao decides to play an additional morale card, I do think that it's still possible to outrace for morale. I mean, he's got such a good combat deck. He's got Snapper Gargant, he's got yet another party wagon, and he even has Sea of Green. I mean, Sea of Green is a pretty solid card if you think about it. I mean, Sea of Green forces a rout, unless if he spends a morale die. I mean, he doesn't really have even morale dice at this point, so it's a little bit... Yeah, it's better. Or Snapper Gargant. I mean, Snappers are always pretty useful, right? Just throw in a bunch of bolt guns, and then you're pretty much gonna die to things, right? So, yeah, alright, so right now, Orcs inflict 5, 6, 7 guns against 4 defensive damage. Okay, yeah, that's enough to kill off the Space Marine, but that's enough to kill off the Space Marine, but he probably just wants to tank the hit on the Bastion. Bastions are not routed. So now we go on to the final showdown. I really am not a huge fan of Vet Scouts. Vet Scouts is a really bad card. Okay, I wouldn't say it's completely unplayable, but honestly, I think now I can understand why Drop Pods is actually so valuable, because if you just have any two Space Marines anywhere on the map, they can basically support each other as soon as by playing Drop Pod Assault. I just find that Vet Scouts is just way too limited in what it can do. Okay, so he's just taking a lot of hits right now. I think Farao, I mean, over here, Farao is suffering 5 deep. See, he's got 5 defense against 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, yeah, no, the Bastion is just dead. It is just straight up dead, and unfortunately, I think it's just gonna win by Planetary. I think that Orcs win by Planetary control. Planetary control. Even. Yeah, but hey, let's play it out. Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, even then, I mean, even if Orcs actually manage to win, even if Farao manages to capture this planet, Orcs would still win by Planetary, right? Because Orcs have a total of 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 planets, whereas Space Marines only 5. Alright, so with that out of the way, it looks like Dennis Warhammer is going to progress towards the semis. I think that's how, yeah, that's the way the cookie crumbles. All right, well, GG. With that out of the way, Pharrell is now knocked out of the tournament. That concludes the cast.